It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We'll take a look at adult verification plans in several states and Australia and why one Texas judge says that's a no-go. Are tech firms failing to tackle Russian disinformation and why Scientology is fighting the right to repair. That and a lot more coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, episode 943, recorded Sunday, September 3rd, 2023. You're the Xenu I Want. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Inflation is everywhere, whether it's gas, utilities, or your favorite streaming services. Thankfully, Mint Mobile can give you a much-needed break. Get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free. Go to mintmobile.com/twit. And by ExpressVPN. Protect your data and identity every time you go online with the #1 rated VPN provider today. Visit expressvpn.com/twit to get 3 months free on a 1-year package. And by ZipRecruiter. New hires can cost up to $4,700. You better get it right if you're investing that much. Get hiring right with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers posting on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT to try ZipRecruiter for free. And by Lookout. Whether on a device or in the cloud, your business data is always on the move. Minimize risk, increase visibility, and ensure compliance with Lookout's unified platform. Visit lookout.com today. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. I have assembled a panel of crack experts who are not stuck in the desert at Burning Man. Nicholas Deleon is here from Consumer Reports, where he is their senior electronics reporter. You now a colleague with our good friend Stacey Higginbotham, who just took a job at Consumer Reports.
Yeah, very cool. Very exciting.
Yeah, we're glad you got her. Sad to see her go. She stopped all of her podcasts and everything, the Kevin Toffel podcast and everything. But she's going to be kind of almost a lobbyist. She's going to be a policy person at Consumer Reports, which is great.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know what department, so to speak, she's going to work for, but yeah, I'm excited. I DM'd her as soon as.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh man, I'm like a huge fan of yours from like a million years. So
and we're all fans of CR, so it goes both ways. It's great to have you. Thank you, Nicholas. Also here, the subtle British intonations of Iain Thomson, the Register.com. Hi, Iain.
Subtle. Hi there. I wouldn't describe myself as a crack expert. I just dabble in it. But no, it's
dabbling is fine. At least you're not stuck in the mud.
Oh, indeed. Although there's a great business opportunity to be had of just flying a helicopter over there and,
oh, yeah. Get the celebrities out.
Bargaining for VC stakes.
Exactly. Exactly. Also joining us, great to have Dan Moren, novelist Dan Moren. I have a stack of your books, but I think they're at home where I'm reading them. Author of All Souls Lost is the latest, danmoren.com. He's, of course, on... what are you, co-editor with Jason at Six Colors? What is your...
Technically, my title is, I think, East Coast Bureau Chief, because I told Jason at some point, like, man, Bureau Chief is a great title. There's not enough of those anymore. That's what I want to do.
I was supposed to be, when we pitched MSNBC on doing the site, I was supposed to be Chief Correspondent. I thought, wow, that sounds like Mike Wallace or something. I ended up being a guy in a rubber suit, so it didn't really... Didn't really work out.
Yeah, your titles are cheap, is what I learned.
Titles are cheap. Hey, this just in. President Biden has been briefed on the situation at Burning Man. What do you think they told him?
Look at these idiots.
So
remember Woodstock, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. Remember, what was it like at Woodstock after the rain? Well, that's what we got here. 70,000 people in Black Rock Desert who are stuck in the mud because they got basically 6 months worth of rain in 24 hours. We know a lot of people there, of course. Trey Ratcliffe goes every year. So does Cory Doctorow. He brought Rebecca Geblin for her first visit, his co-author from for choke point capitalism. That I don't know if that was your best first time, but anyway. We also know that apparently Chris Rock and Diplo were there because...
Oh, the video on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess you could go 5 or 6 miles on a hike through the mud and get to I-35, I think, and then hitchhike your way. And can you imagine the person who pulled over and says, yeah, man, I'll give you a ride. And it's Chris Rock and Diplo going for a ride in your 4x4. So I think that's what happened, is that the people who really wanted to get out got out. And
yeah, there was a tweet from somebody who, from a guy who's a lawyer for Nestle, and apparently argued in court that child slavery shouldn't be a bad thing, and he's stuck there and hiking out, and everyone's just like,
wonderful,
world's tiniest violin.
And there is a
bury
lot
him
of
up to his neck, maybe in mud, and like just really take that to the next level.
There is a lot of Schadenfreude, isn't there? For those of us who are not hip enough to go to Burning Man, that all the people were stuck in the mud. Here's the video of Chris Rock riding with Diplo in the back of a pickup truck, escaping Burning Man in the mud.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the tech angle on this is that if you booked a rental car or a rental van, you're now locked in there, and they know where you are because they've got the GPS signals, and it's whether or not you're going to get a refund or whether they're going to sting you for the full amount. Judging what I know about car rental organizations, you're getting stung to the full amount and then some.
You're in trouble. I don't know what the latest is. Have they opened the entrances yet? They really closed it down. Normally this would be the day people would be leaving. And they really closed it down.
Last I heard, the roads closed for campers or anything over a certain weight, but I don't know if that's still the case. The
problem with this mud is that when it dries, you're dead forever. I mean, it's like it's going to ruin. And I saw so many pictures of 4x4s stuck up to the axles in this mud.
Just really looking forward to the future paleontologists who dig them up.
Something happened here.
We have
this
a
must
classic
have been
example. Yeah.
Must have been a place somewhere. Anyway, all levity aside, and Schadenfreude as well. Hope you make it out and save those crackers, because you might be stuck for a while. Wow, what a mess.
I think Woodstock, didn't they airlift in army rations at one point because it got so bad towards the last day?
I was so high, I don't remember any of it, but I'm sure.
Were you there?
No.
I was going to say.
My old producer, it's funny, my old TV producer in the Screensavers and his wife were there. They didn't meet there, but they must have been young, like 20, and they were both there, and they have great memories of it.
I do love that the couple on the cover of the album with the blanket around themselves.
Just like that.
They're still together and they've still got the blanket.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Some good news if you've been worried about porn validation. And who isn't, after all? Australia and Texas have made... Australia will not force adult websites to bring in age verification, correctly so, due to privacy and security concerns. There, in England, I think they've been talking about this as well, that you would go into a pub with your ID to verify that you were old enough to watch adult content.
Yeah, so you could go down to a newsagent and buy, and get yourself verified,
a license,
and contribute to a massive, probably very poorly secured database of all your credit card data.
Good Lord. A Texas judge has also overturned a law in Texas requiring age verification. By the way, Texas is not the only state. This is some weird disease that's spreading throughout the world. U.S. District Judge David Ezra found the law violates First Amendment free speech rights and is too vague. The suit was brought by the Free Speech Coalition, which is, who'd have thunk it, an adult entertainment industry trade organization.
It's a great branding there for you.
Constitutionally problematic because it deters adults' access to legal, this is the key, sexually explicit material. It is legal. It is not illegal material, far beyond the interest of protecting minors, said the judge. Parents maybe could be involved in this in some way.
Legislating it strikes me as it's just a can of worms, right? I mean, this is what they're finding out. They're finding out that you can't easily not only create like a system like this, but how do you enforce it? I mean, anybody who's met a teenager who has any knowledge of technology is like, you're going to basically find your way around that in about 2 minutes.
This does not overturn. Yeah, that's a good point, too. It's not going to deter anything. This is all, as much of our politics in the U.S. now, and apparently Australia and England, is performative. It's more making a statement than it is actually intended to change anything. Louisiana started it, and their age verification law is still in effect. Went in effect in January. And, of course, the very first thing that happens is Pornhub says, okay, fine, no Pornhub for you. Because they don't want to have to do it. I don't blame them. They said we could do it, but we just don't think it's a good thing to force people to say, yeah, it's me watching that.
Nor do you probably want to end up being liable in the case that it doesn't work, right? Like
Right.
You could say we can enforce this, we can make this policy happen, but the second that somebody circumvents it and Louisiana or whatever wants to sue you for that, why incur that risk on yourself?
And this ties in with a story about Apple. Dan, you cover Apple, so I'm sure you're up to date on this. Apple declined. They had announced and then backed down on including a CSAM tool, a tool for checking for child sexual abuse material on iCloud. They announced it in August, almost exactly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Then they paused that like a month later because they said, "Oh, yeah, nobody likes this," especially.
It never went into effect.
Never happened
because
yeah,
it was extremely controversial, obviously, because it involved scanning stuff on people's devices before it was uploaded to the cloud. And I think this is the rare case of them doing a nice job of actually listening to people and taking into account the concerns and then rethinking and deciding not to do something. And especially, I think, with all the other legislation they're now having to fend off about encryption and security, it is real difficult for them to open that door, right? Because if they start scanning for this material, what is to prevent a government asking to scan for some other material that surely you can identify, right? Hey, you did it for this. So perhaps you can do it for terrorism or for stuff we just don't like. So I think they realized that was opening a door they didn't want to open.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it and concluded that it really wasn't a good idea. I mean, look, this is the problem. Nobody thinks this is a good, child pornography is a good thing in any respect. Everybody wants to put the perpetrators in jail and stop the practice. However, there is a limit to how far you can go. I mean, sure, we could catch every criminal if we gave law enforcement, access to our bedrooms and our living rooms as well as our streets. But we all agree that that's, a bridge too far. The reason this is not a dead subject, this week, a new child safety group that calls itself Heat Initiative, again, interesting branding, told Apple it's going to organize a campaign to demand that the company detect, report, and remove child sexual abuse material from iCloud and offer more tools for users to report CSAM to the company. The problem with this is you put out this press release, most people, without thinking, say, yeah, well, that's a good idea, Apple, you should do that, because they don't understand that there's a consequence to doing this. And then it's up to us and others to explain, well, this is the problem. It doesn't stop there.
If you did a questionnaire saying, would you like to have CSAM material banned from the internet? Pretty much everyone would be fine with that.
Of course.
But if you said to them, would you be okay with backdooring your personal communications and giving license for the police or anyone else who Congress deems suitable to have access to all of your material? People would be slightly more iffy about that.
Yeah.
It's an easy win for politicians, right? Like, because for them to come out, like you just said, to come out saying, like, I'm against this and this is what we're going to do to stop this. It's like everyone, again, no one wants to be the person to stand up to them and be like, yeah, but, and then because they'll immediately get branded as supporting these terrible things that happen, right? Which is not what we're saying. It's just, it is a complex issue and it has implications well beyond this. I mean, this is, I'm sure Iain, has thoughts on the encryption laws that are now being floated in the UK as well as elsewhere, and like similar issues, right? Yeah, you could use these to do things against, people who are doing nefarious things, but what are the consequences and implications of doing that all over?
Well, in the British case, the Home Secretary was like, well, technology is under development, which will allow us to both, secure end-to-end encryption and find this couple.
Someday.
I've been hearing that for 10 or 15 years now, and it's never going to happen.
Is that magic? Is that what that technology is? Is it magic?
Well, this is it. It's like the old saying: you can't get a little bit pregnant. You either, you go the whole hog, or you don't.
And as somebody in our IRC is saying, the problem is in many countries, being gay is considered harmful to children. It's starting to become that way in this country, sad to say. And so if you start enforcing this, where do you stop? And do you give Saudi Arabia the ability to hang gay people because, you're giving them names and addresses of people self-identifying on the website? That's not good. So this is Apple's response. So this is interesting because normally Apple, I think, Dan, during this whole thing, Apple's said nothing and they just let it play out. But they're taking this Heat Initiative petition seriously. Apple's director of user privacy and child safety sent a response to Wired saying child sexual abuse material is abhorrent. You have to say that. That has to be the first sentence. Yes, it's horrible. And we are committed to breaking the chain of coercion and influence that makes children susceptible to it. Yes. But after collaborating with an array of privacy and security researchers, and this was 2 years ago, digital rights groups, child safety advocates, the company concluded it could not proceed with the development of a CSAM scanning mechanism, even one built specifically to preserve privacy. This is the quote: scanning every user's privately stored iCloud data would create new threat vectors for data thieves to find and exploit. It would also inject the potential for a slippery slope of unintended consequences. Scanning for one type of content, for instance, opens the door for bulk surveillance and could create a desire to search other encrypted messaging systems across content types. Apple's really come around on this because I remember 2 years ago, they weren't quite so adamant about that, right, Dan?
No, yeah, they very much promulgated it on the idea like we have found this perfect solution that bridges privacy and the ability to actually act against this. And Apple at its worst is often very convinced of the fact that it is incredible and amazing and has no faults. And I credit them for taking a step back and actually not only discontinuing this program but now speaking out about it. I think is a good move on their part. So it may be a 180, but I think there's value to saying we have more information and we've reconsidered, right? There's a lot of people, politicians, again, especially, that would never do that. They would never turn a 180 on that because you got to stay the course and stick to it. But there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, we did more research. People talked to us, we learned something, and we decided, you know what, that is not the best approach to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had something similar in the UK with the Ripper Act, which was introduced after the bombings in London, which would basically allow the police much easier access to search all your documents. And then when they published the legislation, they were allowing everyone down to parish councillors. So that's kind of like the equivalent of your town, your town's elected board, to have access to that kind of information. And luckily, the Home Secretary's son was an IT consultant, and he sat him down and said, look, this is a stupid idea because, and the legislation got amended. But yeah, you're right. No politician wants to be seen to be U-turned, even if they are actually in the wrong and they know it.
Apple said, we concluded it was not practically possible to implement without ultimately imperiling the security and privacy of our users. That's, by the way, correct. Right? And I think it's almost mathematically provable. If you've got a system, however many safeguards you build in, that reveals this stuff, ultimately it can be used to reveal much more and right. use. And Apple, the last thing Apple wants to do is get requests from Saudi Arabia to say, hey, tell us who's gay. That's the last thing Apple wants to do. That would be devastating to them as a company.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I think, certainly taking into account Tim Cook's personal life, that I think he would certainly not like to be seen as enabling that kind of thing. And it's this sort of thing, it's the same sort of argument that we're going to be having about encryption laws of the world over, which is you can't make a backdoor that only good guys can access, because there's no card swipey system where you can swipe something and be like, see, it proves I'm a good guy, right? Like, that technology doesn't exist. So as long as you open the door for someone, you're risking opening the door for everybody.
And, you know, if you actually invent a system like that, enforce it and tell people you've got it, Russia, China, North Korea are going to launch mini Manhattan projects to break it. But yeah, I mean, all the politicians can say what they want, but I interviewed Bruce Schneier on this a few years back, and he's like, look, it's mathematics. You can pass all the laws you want, but you can't break fundamental laws of mathematics unless you actually invent a new mathematical system.
Yep. That's kind of what I'm saying is it's very clear there's no way to do this properly. However, it's also very clear that governments will continue to try this. Apple is, you know, and I should mention Facebook with WhatsApp and other companies, Google, are moving more in a direction of offering full end-to-end encryption to their customers. That's what customers want. That's the right thing to do. It also lets these big tech companies off the hook because they can correctly say to law enforcement, we can't give you the plain text. We don't have access to that. That's not the case, by the way, with iCloud right now. They do have the keys to that. And that's one of the reasons
for backups specifically. Yes, there is. I mean, like iMessage and stuff like that is end-to-end encrypted. But yeah, if you get your iCloud backups, there are loopholes for some of this information.
Yeah,
and
even
Apple,
WhatsApp backs up in the clear to iCloud.
Yeah. So, you know, there are always going to be loopholes, and there are some cases where Apple has made choices about these things in order to preserve some degree of convenience, because that's always the balance, right? It's convenience versus security. Because for photos, for example, this was a big deal for a while where, you know, yes, you could Apple would have the keys to your photo backups, but no Apple employee ever wanted to be in a position of having, you know, somebody coming to their store and be like, I lost all my photos of my children, of like my, deceased parents or whatever, right? Like, they wanted the ability to say like, okay, in certain cases we can restore that. That was a case they made. But they do now offer the ability to further encrypt stuff if you want to, the advanced data protection feature that they rolled out last year. But again, they warn you a lot, like, look, you can do this, but it's really on you. If you lose access to this, it is gone.
Which is what we want. Frankly, this is a trend, and actually I'd love to address this with all three of you, Nicholas and Dan and Iain, which is, it seems to be a trend in our society to blame society's ills on big tech. Like, instead of saying, well, what we got to do, we have laws against it, is do a better job of arresting and capturing and locking away these predators. Instead, they blame big tech. There's a story this week from the BBC. Tech firms fail to tackle Russian propaganda. Like, it's all on them, right, to solve our societal woes. Social media companies have failed to stop large-scale Russian disinformation campaigns since the invasion of the Ukraine, according to an EU commission, which said that the reach and influence of Kremlin-backed accounts had grown further in 2023. Russian disinformation has increased, particularly on X, since Elon bought the company. The BBC approached Twitter, Meta, TikTok, and YouTube for comment, but no one had anything to say. The study came out on Wednesday. Now, it's reasonable to say, hey, you guys are spreading this information. Of course. But I feel like you can't blame social media for our failing as humans, right? That's not their fault. They just reflect us.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I think you can't. Big tech is a convenient target, especially social media, because it's in everyone's face, right? It's there. It's all the time. People are using a lot of it. But at the same time, I don't think you can absolve them of it either, right? Like you said, if you're the vector for this disinformation, it is your responsibility to combat it. It may not be the only way to deal with that problem, but if your service is being actively used to spread it, you can't just throw up your hands and be like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. We don't make the rules. And the answer is yes, you do. You make the rules. So I think there's probably a middle ground there. I do think it's very easy to target them because, I mean, they're sitting there making a ton of money. Well, a lot of people are struggling, and it is easy to target them, but I don't think it's always wrong. But I think there's probably a middle ground there.
Arkansas passed a law requiring parental okay for minors to create social media accounts. A judge has just blocked it. A federal judge on Thursday temporarily blocked Arkansas's law that would require parental consent for minors to create new social media accounts. Although that seems to me like, well, it really should be up to the parents. I guess all this was saying is that the onus is no longer on the parents, it's on the social media sites to verify. And maybe that's a little more than...
I think it would probably be more effective. We used to have a thing when I was at school called media studies.
Yeah, there you go.
Where you went through and you watched TV. It sounded great. We watched TV in classroom, but then, the teacher would explain, okay.
Yeah, she paused the video and says, okay, class, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I mean, when it comes to social media in particular, then I do think that, some kind of training is just like, okay, this is the obvious sign of a spam account. This, we don't know. Always check your sources, stuff like that. And it might help, but I mean, I'm kind of agree with you, Dan, in that it is it's well, not 50-50, but there is a responsibility here. I mean, we saw with the Myanmar genocide that Facebook actually admitted, yeah, okay, our site was used to spread the information that was used in that country. And then it came out they only had 2 content moderators for the entire country who spoke the local language. Right. And you were kind of like, look, you made how many billions in the last 90 days and you couldn't afford just to hire a few more people for this?
Mm-hmm. Congress is working on this with COSA, Protecting Kids on Social Media Act. Here's an article from Reason Magazine. Protecting Kids on Social Media cloaks attack on privacy behind concern for the children. This is the other question, is how much of this is law enforcement saying, we just want to know what's going on, and how much it is really about protecting minors or women or saving us from terrorism. Those are the 3 kind of straw men always raised in these kinds of things. The Protecting Kids on Social Media Act working its way through the Senate right now, sponsored by Democrats and Republicans.
Going
Brian
to the Senate,
Schatz,
that
Tom
notoriously tech-savvy bunch of people.
Yeah. Yeah. It contains elements of COSA, the Kids Online Safety Act, as well as several ideas pulled from those state bills I was talking about that have passed this year, such as Utah's surveillance-heavy social media regulations law. 43 co-sponsors on COSA. And this other law is just, in case COSA fails, we always have that. They're protecting PCOSMA. Honestly, I think government really just wants to eliminate online anonymity.
I think there's an element to that. And these things backfire all the time. I mean, if you look at the Sopa Pippa problems, that's made sex workers demonstrably less safe. And also destroyed the Craigslist personal site, which is how a lot of people met their partners. But I mean, it was billed as let's protect women and let's protect sex workers, and all you've done is just throw them out into the dark again. And it'll be the same thing with the kids' safety online. It's great to say, oh, it's kids' safety, but then when you see the knock-on effects, and I think it is about anonymity to
Nicholas,
an extent.
Have you written about this for Consumer Reports? Have you? I feel like last time we talked, you had been working on this. I feel like
we have. I don't know if I have recently, but I was just going to say, it sounds like it's like a nightmare to raise kids today, just because.
You don't have kids, do you?
No, I have a fish tank.
Keep that guppy off Twitter. That's all I'm saying.
Between like TikTok and all the crazy, it just seems exhausting. And I put my kind of like my puts up in the foot of a parent. I'm like, what would I do? Would I just like turn off the internet and like we'll move off the grid and just not have anything? Or do you want your children to at least have access to the tools so that they can grow up, be slightly more literate in this stuff? But it's a really difficult kind of like to thread that needle. But I almost reflexively don't believe when government does stuff where they're like, we're protecting the children. It's like that Simpsons meme where they're like, think of the children. It's like, this just feels like fake trying to win brownie points, basically. Yeah,
I agree.
That's my opinion.
And my kids are 29 and 31, so I did not so much have to face this. But I know kids of a variety of ages, and I've seen, I know kids who are in their early 20s, late teens now, I know one kid who was brought up, like you may not get on the internet, and he is somewhat at a disadvantage. He doesn't have the skills, the knowledge, the social, history to really understand what's going on. I think it's left him a little bit in the dust. I've seen the opposite where the, kids, anything go. My kids was pretty much anything goes, but what we always did was made a point of talking to them. I think that sounds like a panacea, but it really is the answer. Dan, you have young kids, right?
I have a 1-year-old, so fortunately
you don't have to worry about this yet.
But
you got to see it coming.
But
right?
I mean, I think back to my teenage years when I was a teenager in the 90s, and my parents did not know anything about technology. Like they, bought a modem, and I was up on my computer. And
it's good that they let you though, because now you have a career.
I've learned a lot. I mean, are there things where they probably should have instituted more guardrails? Probably. But I also think it was tough because they didn't have the knowledge all the time. And I think, as a parent and as someone looking forward to this kind of thing and seeing that in my future, I think all parents really want are two things, which essentially, you want to educate the parents and have them know about these things. Because I think the biggest risk, especially now with the increasing level of online that all kids are, is having parents aware of what is legitimately a concern. And it may not be the thing that you think is a concern. I mean, there's much more about like cyberbullying, for example, I think that is a worry than necessarily predation. Like, I think that is certainly a concern, but it's not as widespread as like the bullying and the, the stuff with, how do you even describe, like young women on Instagram being seeing the examples of everybody else and holding themselves to unreasonable.
Oh, that's so sad.
Right? This stuff is also dangerous and damning, but I don't think it's the thing people think about. And then the other aspect is tools. I think fundamentally having the tools at parents' disposals to help them not only talk to their kids, but also enforce some policies where needed. Like, because so many of the tools that are out there are kind of weak or can be circumvented and stuff like that, or just aren't thought about. People don't think about what are the controls that parents need in order to actually put some guardrails up. But yeah, at the end of the day, I agree with you, Leo. I think that mostly it comes down to being able to talk to your kids and have a conversation about these sensitive issues and be able to, discuss it openly, because nothing else really, and no matter how good your tools are, it doesn't matter at the end of the day if your kids aren't well educated and informed about it. And
as you point out, Ian, they'll get around no matter what, any technological protection.
Well, there's a former editor of the Register who installed, when they gave their kids their first phones when they were 12, he installed the tracking software on there so he could see where they were. And I said, they're probably going to disable that. And he goes, that's kind of the point, because if they learn how to disable it, I'm fine with that.
Getting them ready for DEF CON. I get it. Yeah. Prepare those little hackers.
But I think Dan raised a very good point on the bullying aspect of it, because I was talking to my goddaughter about this. And yeah, I mean, at school, if you got bullied, it was fine. You left, at the end of the day, you went home and you got away from the bullies. But now it's 24/7. It's all in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel for kids. And Dan, you kind of see a train coming down the track in the distance. You must be a little. I was glad that my kids had grown before. I mean, we had internet. We had CD-ROMs.
It's a different world. It really was. I mean, there was only so much damage I could do at a 2400 baud modem.
Exactly, right? Our my 20-year-old, who's going to be 21 in November, when he was younger, Lisa caught him looking at adult sites. I mean, probably too young to normally look. But I think that every kid these days has seen stuff that we thought it was, wow, I saw Playboy once. It was like, whoa. It's a very different world for them. But I don't know if that's harmful to part of the thing that's difficult for parents is it is a different world. So you, Dan, with your 1-year-old, in 10 years, what's the world going to be like in 10 years? And does it have anything to do with the world you grew up in? And what skills are they going to need? What's appropriate? It's very hard to know. So I think that's what you do. You talk, you communicate. Yeah. If they feel uncomfortable, you want them to feel safe telling you that. And that's sometimes hard with a teenager. They don't often want to talk to mom and dad. But I hate to blame big tech because I think they also have so many advantages. There's a story this week about Caltech. High schools these days have eliminated a lot of their STEM stuff. And Caltech has very rigid requirements going into this school. Very top school. 43 Nobel laureates teach there and stuff. It's really good school. And so you have to have had calculus, chemistry 3, physics. And schools aren't even offering that anymore. So Caltech has just announced that if you go to a school that doesn't offer those higher level physics and math classes, you can take it from Khan Academy or other online sources. If you can show you learned it there, that's good enough. And this is a huge change for Caltech, but it's an acknowledgement of the difference in this world. And I think it's a good thing. It shows some real flexibility. All right, I want to take a little break. We've got a great panel. We're going to get you more involved, Nicholas Deleon. I guess with your goldfish, you just didn't have the standing.
Not really, but it is my heart aches because I have friends with kids, and it just seems hard, especially.
It's very hard.
Being at CR, it's like I know parents. We try to write about like tools and parental control, things like that. But it's like if you're a parent, you work all day, you come home, you cook, like you don't have like the energy to like sit down and audit what sites or apps your kids are using. And obviously, your kids are going to be way more like fluent in these in phone stuff and computers than you are. So it's very intimidating if you're a parent. You're like, I don't even know how to do this. So
I just tell my kids, don't have kids. It's okay. You don't have to have children. It's not a requirement. Iain Thomson. See, Ian's perfectly happy. No children that he knows of, right?
I've always been careful. So, yes.
The register. We've also lost your camera. I don't know.
Also, with a camera, I may have to rejoin in after the break.
That's all right. We're going to take a break. You can join back. I like this. This is the eye of Iain. I don't know. I like it. I think that's a good logo for you, Iain. And from sixcolors.com, Dan Moren. How's the new book doing?
The new book's not out yet. The newest comes out next month.
Next month.
6 weeks. Yeah.
Is there a Kickstarter or anything we can do to?
Let's say you can go and pre-order it from any of your favorite online bookstores, Amazon, Apple Books, Google Play. Should be up in all of those places. Kobo, Barnes.
Is this another Galactic Cold War story, or
it's not? This is a so far a standalone. It's a supernatural detective story set in my hometown of Somerville, which involves shady goings on at a tech company, a big tech company. So there you go, right in our wheelhouse.
Somerville, Mass.
Yeah,
wow,
that's right.
I know where Somerville is. The boyfriend's not possessed. He's dead. The tech company where he worked is looking shadier by the second, and Lucifer's client definitely knows more than she should about everything. I love it that your hero is Mike Lucifer, spiritual consultant. All Souls Lost comes out October 17th, just in time for a Halloween reading. Spooky. And who's going to do the audiobook? Do you know yet?
I do, but I don't think it's actually been announced yet.
Okay.
So I don't have that.
The Galactic Cold War audiobooks are great.
Thank you.
I was thinking, I should call Dan, see if he needs somebody to read his books. And I listen, and you've got a great reader. So.
People always ask me if I'm going to read my books. I'm like, I am not that. I do a lot of podcasts, but I don't. It is a right, like it is a skill set. I don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
The people that I admire greatly, and I'm glad they get those jobs.
There are authors like Neil Gaiman who are actors as well as writers who can do it, but that's few and far between.
I'm not Neil Gaiman. I tried.
We all tried.
It was already taken.
Yeah, unfortunately. All Souls Lost, October 17th. It's great to have you, all three of you, on the show today. Our show today brought to you by Mint Mobile. Love Mint Mobile. Been a customer for, 4 years. Look, just all you could do me a favor. Just look at your cell phone bill. Most of us avert our eyes when the cell phone bill comes in. We just I don't want to look because it's, they promise sometimes these companies $70 a year and you get or a month and you get everything, and it never ends. It always ends up being over 100. It's crazy. Maybe that's inflation. I don't know. There's one company that is giving you a much needed break, Mint Mobile. Look at your cell phone bill and then ask yourself, why am I paying more than $15 a month? All in. That's the price. How do they do it? They're the first company to sell premium wireless service online only. No stores. That saves a lot of overhead. About the cheesiest ads you've ever seen, featuring Ryan Reynolds. He doesn't spend money on that stuff. and you save. You can order it from your home. You don't need to go to a phone store and save a ton. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. And there is inflation at Mint Mobile, but it's the inflation, it's the good kind, because they've been giving us more and more data for the same price. They recently just upped it. That's incredible. By going online only, eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. They have very flexible plan options. You could bring your own device. They'll send you a SIM or use eSIM, and they now put it on Mint Mobile network. You can port your number over very easily, save all your contacts, or get a device from them. I got a beautiful iPhone SE from them for $15 a month, which means my total all-in brand new phone and Mint Mobile 5 gigabytes of data a month, $15. But look, all the plans come with unlimited talk plus text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Look at your bill, see what you're paying, see how much data you've used, then choose the plan that's right for you. And as I said, you can use your own phone or get one from Mint Mobile. But when you switch to Mint Mobile, you'll be getting premium wireless service starting at $15 a month. There's just so many great benefits to Mint Mobile. Go to the website, mintmobile.com/twit. Get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free. Mintmobile.com/twit. Mintmobile.com/twit. Cut your wireless bill, $15 a month. Go right now to mintmobile.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support. There's Iain Thomson. You got your camera working. Did you unplug and replug? Or now we don't have any audio.
You only have one. You can have video or audio. You can have both states at the same time.
I'd rather have audio than video. Ian's looking seriously at his computer. Speaking of X, aka, I guess I have to call it the company formerly known as Twitter, although I've never liked the fact that they stole our name. So I like that they're called X now, which makes it impossible to search for them, of course. X is going to lift the earlier Twitter ban on political ads just in time for the big election in 2024.
What could go wrong?
Speaking of disinformation,
I'm already seeing I'm in Arizona now, so I guess a swing state. I moved to Tucson in January. I'm already seeing ads on YouTube for various candidates, presidential candidates, and I'm already exhausted. I can't do this for another year.
It's a big moneymaker, of course, not just for social networks and streamers, but for broadcast too. It's millions of dollars during. I know because I used to work in radio. It's like a boon. It's like manna from heaven during political campaigns. Why did Twitter ban political ads? They did it in 2018. 2019 after the midterm elections. They said political message reach should be earned, not bought, Jack Dorsey said.
This is America, for goodness sake. You don't do that here.
It's capitalism, man.
There's no fighting in here. This is the war room.
Well, exactly. This is the country which has basically legalized bribery by calling it campaign contributions. And now it's just, I thought Twitter's ban on political ads was great, but,
it was good for users. That's what it was. It was good for people like you, Nicholas, and me, who didn't want to be bombarded every third tweet with ads. But now we're bombarded every third tweet with ads for Cheech and Chong gummies and weird devices to clean your home, and it's not exactly the high level.
The quality of ads have declined. I still use Twitter. We were talking a little bit before on the air. I still use Twitter more or less the same as I always have, which is I always use it for like a lot of sports stuff, in addition to like tech reporting. But
know what?
All the sports guys are still there, but the quality of ads is definitely
try as you might to abandon Twitter. It still is the only one of all the networks you can go to kind of reliably and get Cheech and Chong gummies. Oh, crap. And get and hear from like all the people that you really, really want to hear from.
I've got to say, when you start banning adverts, they get more and more desperate. And some of the ones they throw at you are really quite bizarre. Somebody was trying to sell me, what were they called? Survival seeds, or seeds, as I believe they're called.
Survival seeds. It's amazing. Just add water and have your own plants. It's a miracle. By the way, I just came across this from Burning Man. Apparently, they are still celebrating. This is a impromptu catwalk in the mud at Burning Man. This is not fake. This is real.
They're really taking mud and making lemon mud?
Lemon mud pies. Lemon mud pies. Wow. Oh, no. Sorry. See, this is one thing I like about Twitter. They've got the Twitter notes thing now. Readers added context. This is not Burning Man. It's from a Balenciaga fashion show in Paris, which is even weirder.
Oh, good grief. That's insane. I mean, I know they're French and all, but,
it really looks like Burning Man. I'm not sure whether to believe the note or the original tweet.
There you go. You can never know now. It's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle all over again.
Well, isn't this the problem with mass disinformation? Is we know, especially with the help of AI, which can crank this stuff out at high speed, because we won't know what's real anymore.
Right. You don't have to convince people. You only have to sow doubt. It's much easier, right? If you just spam enough stuff that people don't know whether or not they can trust things anymore, your job is done. You don't need to convince them of something else. You just need to convince them that they can't trust their own eyes.
Flood the zone with BS is the Russian, old school Russian propaganda, and I think probably Soviet propaganda method. You don't have to make it believable even. You just have to flood it.
Yeah.
And then have people doubt everything. And that's kind of where we are now, which is nobody believes anything no matter where they read it, which I suppose is better than believing everything, but
yeah, it's a strategy of disengagement, I think. It's just like, and the Russians have proven very good at this. I mean, the Russians, technically, I mean, I was at oddly enough, at a Kaspersky security conference a few years back, and somebody gave a presentation on this who was claiming that the Russians actually invented in the 1920s the word disinformation, and have been very, very good at it ever since. And as we've seen with, the Internet Research Agency, which was run by the late and little lamented head of the Wagner Group, that was enormously effective in terms of pumping out stuff in the 2016 election until the NSA balked their computers. So yeah, flood the streams and let people just get more and more cynical about it.
And actually, if you're absolutely right. If you have a cynical electorate, they don't vote. And if they don't vote, then it's easier to get what you want, whatever that might be, because you don't have the wisdom of the crowd. You have the wisdom of one guy. Yeah. So it's a very clear strategy, and it's a very effective strategy. And unfortunately, now this one you do have to a little bit blame big tech for, right? This, unfortunately, we have created. See, I don't blame them, because they created incredibly friction-free means of communication. YouTube and Twitter and Facebook are incredible ways for anybody to have a voice, to reach out and talk. And on the face of it, that's a good thing. But it also enables this, Internet Research Agency and this kind of flood the zone stuff. I have a hard time blaming tech for democratizing speech.
I think you're fine on that. I think in the case of X that we were just talking about, they've basically decided we need the money. This is kind of thing could be incredibly valuable, particularly with a close election coming up. And they've made not just this decision, but also, for example, a couple of days ago, they announced that you're not actually going to be able to vote in polls unless you paid up for your blue check mark. And Musk actually blamed this on the Anti-Defamation League woke mind virus.
Oh, good Lord.
Which shows you just quite how bad down the rabbit hole he's gone.
Yeah, there was some. I think I saw a story earlier this weekend about a white supremacy ad that was running, and basically coming up around the same time as this sort of ban the ADL thing was trending. And I think it takes that sort of laissez-faire approach to an extreme of like, we're not going to touch anything. Like, let this whole thing work itself out. There are no rules. It is the Wild West, essentially. And that is kind of what this is. Like, why ban political ads? Not only will we make money off of it, but also why should we shouldn't ban anything. Speech should be free. You should be able to say literally anything you want, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the First Amendment, but sure.
Oh, but also, we're all journalists here. And if we're all subject to libel laws. You know, it's like if I'd suddenly decided, you know, to write an article and managed to get it published saying that, you know, Elon Musk is a felcher who wears pink tutus in his spare time, I could quite legitimately be sued for libel because it's a clear lie. But that doesn't apply to social media platforms, and they're going to fight to make sure that it doesn't. Yeah, you're right about, you know, free speech. It comes with responsibilities as well.
It would be less worrisome if all Elon did was run Twitter. Then we could just write off Twitter, and that'd be that. But Elon also runs SpaceX, which provides all the frontline communication for Ukraine. We've talked last week about Ronan Farrow's article in The New Yorker. He also runs Tesla, which in a country where we're desperately trying to reduce carbon emissions made EVs really happen in this country and around the world. And yet half of Elon's Teslas are made in China. So he has, this kind of debt to China. This opinion piece in the Washington Post, Elon Musk's control over satellite internet demands a reckoning. Well, it's a little late for that. They maybe should have thought about that when the FCC gave him the license to put 42,000 satellites in low Earth orbit.
Yeah.
Well, he's also our only way to get to the ISS using American-made rockets from American soils. So, you know,
we were using
kind of
Russia.
holding the whip hand on this.
Yeah. Does he have too much power, or should we be worried? And more importantly, what could we do about it if we were?
Yeah,
Nothing.
well, I think you can be worried, but as you said, what are you going to do? Can rein him in? I mean, as soon as even if there were grounds in the government for taking action against him, the people who back him are exactly the same people who are going to get up in arms if that happens, even if it's legitimate, right? Like the following he has cultivated is one that is antithetical to any sort of government intervention. Basically, it works great in his favor, right? Like, so you can argue whether or not he sincerely believes in that, or if it's just convenient for his purposes. But I think it's a real risk. I mean, I don't know what you do about it. I don't even know what grounds you would have for that.
The Washington Post asks, what's to be done while a president theoretically has the legal option of nationalizing Starlink? In a worst-case scenario, Woodrow Wilson did with the country's railroads during World War I. That would be neither politically popular nor prudent. A better solution might be for the U.S. to try to build satellites of its own. The Pentagon awarded contracts last week to Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman to create a low-orbit satellite constellation, partly to make sure there's a backup in Ukraine. $1.5 billion. It's only 72 satellites. However, it might be sufficient to at least give us some freedom from Elon's Starlink. I don't think there is a good solution. And
I mean, Jeff Bezos is talking about throwing up a bunch of satellites as well, but he's been talking about getting a serious rocket off the ground, and he still can't do that yet.
I don't think he's close. I really don't. They have the right. Blue Origin has the right. I think the FCC also said they could do it, but I think
more junk in space. Great.
Yeah, right.
That's also another good solution.
Yeah. What a world! It's complicated. I guess is the best.
It's brave. It's new.
It's really easy, and I'm trying really hard not to get jaded and cynical and just say, "Oh, we're out of luck." You know, I've been reading the book about Robert Moses by Robert Caro, and then next I'm going to segue into his lengthy series on Johnson. Both are very long, but it's really about the use of political power in the 20th century, and it was just as corrupt and just as bad. Johnson stole his election in the Senate, like demonstrably faked the votes. Robert Moses had more power than an emperor to pave over New York City. No one could stop him. This is kind of the story. When you read it and you study it, it's the story of politics in America, and I suspect around the world. It's hard to be optimistic. It's hard to be a Pollyanna.
I think we'll muddle through. You know, at the end of the day, these things have come and gone, and you know, we're at the acceleration moment for a civilization. I think is probably the best way to put it. But I also think that
you think we'll survive climate change.
Some people will. Yeah.
My dad is my dad's a paleontologist, a marine paleoecologist. He studies ancient environments, and I asked my dad this, and he said, "Well, the Earth will survive."
We'll give the bees a shot next time, or the octopi.
So I'm not that worried. The Earth will, the Earth can handle it. We might have polluted ourselves out of existence.
Well, there's a fun, there's a book which actually was quite popular. In fact, Dan, you probably know this, called the Last and First Men by Olaf Stapleton, written in the 1930s, where he follows 14 versions of humanity as they travel from the present day to several billion years in the future. And that the kind of thing does give you hope, because, sooner or later, intelligence will win out. One can hope.
God, I hope so. I hope you're right. Doesn't seem there's much precedent for that, to be frank. But if you say so, Ian, you have that nice British accent. You sound intelligent. You must be right. Yeah. What's the name of that? That sounds interesting. That was written in the 30s?
Yeah, it's on Project Gutenberg as well, so it's free.
What's the name of it again?
It's The Last and First Men, by a guy called Olaf Stapleton.
And does it hold up? I mean, here we are almost 100 years later.
Okay, that's a good point. The first 5 chapters really don't hold up, because he was writing it in 1930, which was before this little toothbrush and moustache guy came into power in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
So he kind of got the whole Second and Third World Wars thing wrong. But once you get onto the second era of man, then it gets really interesting in terms of how mankind could evolve, and not all these evolutions are, particularly helpful in some regards.
He predicts 18 different human species, of which we are the first. Mm-hmm. But this is over 2 billion years. This is over a very long time.
Well, this is it. But yes, there's a British show called Desert Island Discs, where you're being marooned on a desert island, and you're allowed 1 book, and that's been chosen more than most by a variety of different scientists as something which will give them hope in the days ahead. So I may get my copy out again.
Let's just skip ahead to the 18th generation of humans, the most advanced humans of all, essentially a perfected version of the 17th species, a race of philosophers and artists with a very liberal sexual morality. All right, this sounds good. Specifically, we seem to be not one species, but many. There are a number of different subgenders, variants on the basic male and female pattern. We're moving in that way, aren't we? With distinctive temperaments.
Yeah, he is somewhat sex obsessed in that he was an advocate of free. He and his wife were advocates of free love and were quite famous for it in the day. But I think it's.
How did he feel about cannibalism? Because apparently this 18th generation practices ritual cannibalism.
We used to practice humans. Actually, some humans possibly still do.
A long tradition.
You're not going to win them all, okay?
Okay.
You got some goods. You got some bads.
It's good to throw in some bad stuff. Apparently, there was a movie made, an Icelandic movie made.
Of course, it's Icelandic, right? Dark, bleak, and putting out and viewing out over tundra. That's Iceland to a core.
Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I mean, all you can say is whatever anybody says. It's we don't know. It's fantasy. It's made up. We have no way of knowing what 2100 will bring, let alone 20,100 or 20.
Well, if we can just get this fusion business sorted out, then
let's just figure that out. Yeah. I was very disappointed that superconducting is not in our near future.
Oh, yeah.
Sigh. Little break. More to come. Just a bit. But first, a word from our sponsor, ExpressVPN. Oh, well, I'll tell you, one of the biggest issues I think our audience talks about is data brokers, companies grabbing your web history, your email data, your video searches, creating a detailed profile of you, and then selling it off to the highest bidder. These days, companies don't just sell products, they sell you. We, in many cases, are the product. We're learning that, aren't we? Maybe you want to protect yourself, your privacy, your identity, your data from these tech giants. You can do it with a VPN. In fact, the one I use, ExpressVPN. Use it every time you go online, and no one will know it's you. Think about the websites you visit, Facebook, Twitter, Google. Everything you do and you say online is tracked. They have your public IP address, and they can match it up, match your activity, know your location. And you know that incognito mode does not hide your information from Google or anybody else. ExpressVPN, except your spouse. That's about it. ExpressVPN makes you anonymous online by camouflaging your IP address, replacing it with a different, secure IP of your choice. It also encrypts all your data, so it's protected from hackers or any man in the middle that's trying to spy on you, like your internet service provider. And what's best about ExpressVPN, it's easy to use. You put it on any device, Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android. Just download the app on your device, tap one button, you're protected. And if you want to emerge somewhere else in the world, it's easy. You can pick your locale, your IP address. It is more than privacy. It's security, privacy, and we know it works because ExpressVPN gets their technology audited on a regular basis by independent third-party auditors. Their trusted server technology, which operates sandboxed in RAM, keeps no trace of your visit, disappears the minute you leave. They reboot their computers every day with a special version of Debian on it that wipes the entire drive each time. They care about your privacy. If you're like me and you believe your internet data belongs to you and not some greedy corporation, ExpressVPN. You can even put it on your router and protect the whole house. And because ExpressVPN invests in their network, they're fast enough that you can watch HD video. You won't, unlike other VPNs, you won't complain, oh, this is slowing me down. You won't. In fact, I've left it on by accident many, many times, and I've never noticed. You just don't notice. And then I go, oh, wait a minute, I've been running through the VPN for the last 4 weeks. Protect your data, which is not bad. I think that's not a bad thing. Protect your data with the #1 rated VPN provider today. Visit expressvpn.com/twit. Get 3 months free on a 1-year package. expressvpn.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And I think if you're looking for a VPN, there is no question. This is the one. expressvpn.com/twit. Moving right along. Let's see. Right to repair advocates. Big victory in California. For some reason, Dan, Apple has decided to throw in the towel and is now supporting right to repair. Do you have any idea why?
I mean, they did the work, I think is the short answer, right? They launched their repair kits. They've been expanding. I think they saw the writing on the wall and decided like, well, can't beat them, might as well join them. And I think they would have preferred not to do it, but having basically realized this is probably going to roll out in some states at the very least, and some like California that are big deals, it was easier to just figure out a way to accommodate it. And there are none as zealous as the converts. And so I think, once they were on board, they decided, well, there's no point to us being recalcitrant and being all grumpy about it. So we might as well support it at this point because the job's done.
You did a survey, Consumer Reports did a survey of Americans saying they overwhelmingly support the right to repair. We want it. There's no question. This survey was a couple of years ago. Is it victory, Nicholas Deleon? As California goes, so goes the nation, I guess, right?
Yes, basically, yeah. No, it's like if you had told me a few years ago that Apple would have endorsed a right to repair bill, like that would be very hard to believe. But it's through the work of, the activists and the reporters. I actually personally want to give a shout out to Jason Kebler from Vice Motherboard. They just started another site called 44 Media. I think those guys were they put a lot of pressure on Apple. I was in some of those calls when I was at Vice Motherboard, and they were not fun calls discussing some of Apple's stances on right to repair. But through that pressure, through media pressure, Apple came around. I think credit to them. That probably wasn't something they were planning on doing, like I said, a couple of years ago. But it's overwhelmingly favored by consumers. I don't really see what the harm is if you're Apple. But yeah, we've written about this a lot at Consumer Reports, and this is the type of thing where I don't think folks necessarily want the ability to replace their own screen. I don't think folks have the skill at the time to really do that. But not everybody lives in, a big city where there's an Apple store, 15 minutes away. If it opens up the ability for kind of the main street repair guy to fix your phone when you just drop, that's great. So I think it's a huge victory for the right to repair folks. Yeah.
Jason actually was on Twit last week. Taking a little victory lap because Apple announced this more than a week ago,
man.
And he was very, very happy, as was Kyle Weens from iFixit. This is a big victory.
And
for
you've had Cory Doctorow.
Kyle, yeah,
I've known Kyle,
of course.
Yeah. What to fly on the wall, Nicholas? What did Apple? So you're on a phone call, you and Jason on the phone call with Apple. What did they give a reason
I've had
for
calls
not?
with all these companies.
It's security, right?
Nothing was on the record, years ago, but that was generally, not to pin it specifically in Apple, but the industry kind of resistance was always like, oh, this is a security thing. I remember I had a conversation with, this is a little silly, there was a small, an appliance lobby. I didn't even know there was an appliance lobby, but apparently there's an appliance lobby in DC for toasters and things like that. And
I'm with the toaster lobby, and we're here to tell you we don't want people fixing their toasters.
Literally.
They could put a screwdriver in there and electrocute themselves.
It was that. It was well, if we allowed a guy to walk into your house to repair your refrigerator, what if he steals your family? I'm like, this is ridiculous. And my attitude was look, this is my toaster. I bought it. If I want to smash it with a sledgehammer, that's my business.
Right.
They did not know how to respond to that statement. But yeah, this was the reaction. It was always security. Oh, we can't allow this. People will get hurt. Oh, people will steal your, which is obviously silly. You've had Kyle on it. It's this is nonsense. So I am glad to see that it's finally, we could close, of all the problems of planet Earth, we can kind of close that chapter a little bit.
Well, speaking of planet Earth,
kind of solve this problem.
Speaking of planet or battlefield Earth, as I should call it, the heirs of L. Ron Hubbard apparently are not exactly in favor of right to repair. This story from your publication, The Register. What's the story, Ian?
Basically, this is just the most unlikely of bedfellows. I don't know if you're familiar with the L. Ron Bonkers crew, but they have this thing where you hold onto a device. It's called an e-meter, which has been around since the 50s, and it measures, well, as best we can tell, it measures fluctuation in skin conductivity. But in fact, what it does is measure how many thetans are infecting your soul with their badness after they were dropped into volcanoes by the supreme leader of the universe.
It sounds like you're making that up, but it's true.
It's absolutely true.
It's true. Yeah.
So yeah, they are petrified that people are actually going to start, right, okay, if I get my hands on one of
you're
these,
kidding. They're worried about right to repair on the e-meters?
Yeah. Well, they're worried about the right to tinker and and trade secrets and that sort of thing. So this is basically about don't spoil our stuff, don't look behind the curtain, and otherwise more and more people are going to realize it's all complete bollocks.
What?
Yeah. It's strange when you get John Deere and the Scientologists on the same side of the debate. But
in a letter filed earlier this month, this is from your story, with the U.S. Copyright Office, Author Services, Inc., which represents, quote, the literary, theatrical, and musical works, I had no idea there were musicals, of L. Ron Hubbard, opposed renewal of subsection 1201 that allows consumers to circumvent software locks in order to repair their devices. This is critical because pretty much everything these days is locked from your toaster oven to your inkjet printer. By copy protection, essentially. Section 1201 exemptions have been granted in a number of cases, including for the repair of John Deere tractors. Author Services says, quote, we have no objection to the exemption as applied to consumer devices to allow consumers to repair products in their own initiative, but some devices can only be purchased and used by someone who possesses particular qualifications or has been specifically trained in the use of the device Software licenses are not unilateral in this case, but negotiated and agreed to in advance of purchase. In many cases, such restrictions are essential to ensuring the safe and proper use of the device, which is essential for the device manufacturer. By the way, spelling throughout this, there are mistakes. I'm skimming over them. To maintain its reputation and goodwill. Yeah, that's clearly referring to the e-meter, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very brave of them to say that crushing stupidity was a key essential skill when it comes to dealing with their equipment. But
so loosening 1201 would directly contradict the terms of the negotiated pre-purchase license. So wait a minute, though. I mean, all animosity towards the great church of L. Ron Hubbard aside, it is true, right? I mean, if I bought something and you as the seller said, okay, but we got to, like maybe it's the Flipper Zero, we got to make a deal that you're not going to reverse engineer this or open this up. Shouldn't that explicit, I'm not talking about shrink wrap license, but explicit agreement trump the right to repair? Like I've agreed, okay, I won't repair it. That doesn't seem unreasonable.
Well, on the other hand, it's what the technology industry has been dealing with pretty much since the dawn of the PC. I mean, if Compaq hadn't spent that money to reverse engineer IBM's chips, we'd still be buying $3,000 to $1,000 PCs produced by Big Blue. I guess, yeah, on one level, it's fair enough. But at the same time, if you want a specific exemption, that would be fine. But you know, I've got a plug that I can plug into my car and have a look around the electronic control system, and technically that's illegal. But when it comes to something as stupid as an e-meter, I don't really see they've got much of a leg to stand on.
Not to mention, I mean, there's secondary markets there too, right? I mean, what happens if, you know, I'm sure if somebody negotiated their software deal or license or whatever, it probably says you can't, you know, hawk this on eBay when you're done with it, right? But to the person who buys it, who is no longer bound by that license, are they not allowed to touch it? Are they not allowed to take it apart? Is that all banned as well? Like, how does that, what's the implication there? I find it interesting that part of this that I think is compelling is to me is the idea that the legal protections, right? That somebody, not only could somebody get the hold of this and reverse engineer it or open it up or post a video on YouTube showing here, I took this apart and this is how it works, but that the church wouldn't be able to go after them necessarily because of it, right? Because that allows a certain degree of, I can do this without fear of retribution from an organization, which is known for retribution.
Yeah. You know, somebody is purportedly, and
I was going to say, if you go on eBay,
you can buy an e-meter.
On eBay, there are e-meters, alleged e-meters.
Can I get a Mark Ultra 8 e-meter? Because this agreement looks pretty serious about
Mark.
This.
Yeah, I see Mark 7.
Wow. So, but I can understand why they would want to protect themselves against unauthorized disassembly of this. I feel like they should be able to make that agreement with. It's like an NDA, right?
Well, I mean, maybe
if you have a Vision Pro, you're not allowed to disassemble it and post the schematics online. Apple has the right to that, to say that. Yeah. I want to buy an e-meter, though. Maybe I could get into the business on the side here.
Well, you've got to have a crushing lack of morals, so that might be a bit sort of outside of your skill set. But you know, if I buy a laptop and they say you can't go in there, and actually they explicitly say that, I'm not buying that laptop because I've got a ThinkPad I've had to take the back off 5 times now.
Whoa, these are expensive. Getting into the Scientology business is not cheap. Here's a new Scientology Mark Ultra 8 Hubbard professional e-meter complete in the box, $4,850. Well, here's some less expensive ones, but
yeah.
Plus, you got to get all the training too, right? You
don't
know what it means until you get trained.
Well, I mean, this will be the answer. If this actually does get passed, then this will be what they say. When people point out that this, take them apart and point out it's a bunch of junk, they're just like, oh, we see you don't have the special skills in e-meter use that we have. So, I mean, and let's face it, their believers are going to believe them whatever they say. Yeah. So, because, you know,
that is
it's that kind of
group.
Is
the issue. I mean, you look around at this stuff and they specifically say, well, like, yeah, all it does mention is your, you know, electrical impedance or whatever. But what we can do with that, how we can interpret that information is the special sauce, right?
This.
And
apparently Scientology requires you to have 2 e-meters in case one breaks for $11,700.
I mean,
Who would have
when you're
thought they'd charge so much?
yeah.
Wow.
When
These
you're
are
a
pretty
grift,
nice.
you got to be grifting all the time,
They're
right?
pretty nicely designed. They look good. I mean, they come in a nice box, little container. You have a
It's
right
fun too,
hand or a
because
left
if you look
hand
on
version.
if you look on the Wikipedia page, they have the history. They have a bunch of the different models like over time.
They originally were like
And
tin
it's-
cans with wires, right?
It's fascinating to watch the evolution as like clearly they are hiring people who are like better at product design amongst their faithful.
Yeah.
And presumably there's an app for that now as well with the latest kits. So, you can log in from your phone and get something done maybe.
Can my Apple Watch do this? Can my Apple Watch read Thetans? Is that a possibility?
Ooh. I don't think Xenu would
next
allow
version.
that. I think that's prohibited. And we're going to get in so much trouble. I'm going to get a bullet in my mailbox or something, or a snake or something. I just
Okay,
know.
well, we'll just have to be even-handed about it. Let's start with the Mormons, right?
Oh, yeah. Why not offend them as well? Anybody else? Methodists? You want to go after Presbyterians next?
Actually,
What is
no,
the deal?
we should do the Amish because they're not going to be watching. So,
Oh, you're bad. You are so bad. I do not want to knock anybody's religious beliefs at all. But, and honestly, I think they have a little bit of a case that if you make it a side deal that says, I'm not going to disassemble this, you should, that should be protected, right? It's, I feel like that you should be able to you should be able to contractually agree with anybody about almost anything, and that should be honored over and above state law. Maybe not. Maybe, I guess not.
I mean, you can make a contract that is illegal. I guess the question is,
Right.
if both people signing it are agreeing to it, is there a leg to stand on? You probably need a lawyer for this. But I found it interesting also, by the way, that this author services company is the one doing the complaining about it, that apparently holds the rights to the literary stuff, which just goes, I don't know. It's one of those cases where I feel like it goes to show you start digging down deeper and this,
Were there any
It wasn't
L. Ron
human.
Hubbard musicals? I mean, they claim the rights to the musicals.
I've never watched Battlefield Earth, so it could be a musical.
It could be a musical.
I wouldn't know.
Earth
watched
is in
about the first 15
trouble.
minutes.
Where is Xenu?
John Travolta, he's got some singing chops, right?
That's true. You're the Xenu I want. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm sorry. We are going to, I'm going to get such letters.
that's a good title. Yeah, okay.
Speaking of the DMCA, the NFL, the NBA, and Ultimate Fighting Championships want to rewrite the law because those DMC takedowns are just not fast enough. The problem is, of course, people are stealing live streams.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. And once the live stream's streamed and you've watched the show, it doesn't matter if you get a takedown, right? The DMCA does say it should be processed expeditiously. But what is expeditiously? In a letter to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office from last week, the NFL, NBA, UFC urged the government to change expeditiously to instantaneously or near instantaneously, which is, I mean, already you got a problem with DMCA takedowns because they're so quick on YouTube and other places. You have no chance. You can't defend yourself. They just take it down. If it's instantaneous, they absolutely can't defend yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're also notoriously dumb. There's been more than a few cases of people being issued with takedown notices for stuff they've created themselves. It's just,
Yeah.
the idea.
It's tricky too. I mean, I've actually had to issue some, weirdly enough,
For your
which
books?
I appreciated. No, weirdly enough, so I made shirts based on stuff from my books, and I had a couple of those, like, print any.
Is that
shirt
one behind
sites.
you there over your left shoulder? Is that?
That is not. No,
Oh,
but
it looks like
it
a
was
Burning
funny.
Man logo. Actually, is that your burner shirt?
Which one? Here?
That black T-shirt. No, the black T-shirt.
That's a blanket actually.
Oh,
that's one of Jason's incomparable.
it's the
blankets.
it's the robot.
It's
Oh,
the
yeah,
robot. Yeah.
I thought there was the Burning Man X there. Okay, good.
I made some shirts, and I honestly, I don't sell very many of them. I've sold maybe a couple hundred over like the last 5 or 7 years. But all those like T-shirt mills, people would just like scrape stuff. And I honestly think the biggest reason to end up doing it is because like Marquise Brownlee wore one of my shirts on one of his stream once.
Nice.
And I think I literally found it like as like, oh, it's a Marquise Brownlee shirt. I'm like, no, that's not. It's my shirt. I made that shirt. So I appreciated the ability to actually be like, it's, because these corporations are just these faceless like sites. It's like, who knows where those people are? They could probably pack up shop and disappear if they needed to. But at least the DMCA did provide a provision for like making it easy for me to be, as a person just working on my own, be like, let me just fill out this form letter essentially and send to them, and they usually get taken down. But they also get misused, right? So it's a tricky issue.
Let's be clear, by the way, because if there's anything worse than Scientologists, it's Marcus Brownlee fans. You did not issue a MBKHD takedown.
No, I was
for the t-shirt
flattered
company.
he wrote it.
Yes,
exactly. It was those t-shirt sites that like any number of things show up on.
But you wouldn't want an instantaneous.
One thing just regard to the specific live stream. I think like UFC, all the sports league are complaining about like live streams of. So if there's a UFC pay-per-view happening right now,
yes, exactly.
They don't.
And there's
want
a bar
live streams of that
that's stealing
right
it.
Sure. Well, there's an issue is that like the DMCA is an American law. There is a very prominent baseball streaming site that I don't know if it's based in Iran, but it has an Iranian domain. So I don't know that they recognize the DMCA in Iran. I don't know that they care. So it's like they're complaining about like, oh, these sites and these live streams, they're hosted overseas. Like I don't know if a Belarusian guy is like gonna care about an American. What do you do? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So it is, and this Iranian, every single game is. I'm looking at it right now. Every single game that's live is available in perfect quality. Obviously, I actually pay for MLB.TV, but I don't assume that the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball is too happy with this Iranian site that is just live streaming every single thing for free. But I don't know what you do. What do you do?
What they used to do when this first came up was actually send people around. If they got a report of say, a bar hijacking a live stream and running it, they'd just send someone down there and get some evidence, and then they could hit them with massive fines.
Named Vito.
Well, no,
baseball bat.
Think about it.
Fines weren't the only thing they were being hit with.
It's actually a great job when you think about it, because it's like, right, go to this bar and check if they're showing things. Like, well, first pint in. Yeah, I think it's our stream, but I better just check. I'll stay around for a while and then.
Well, that's part of the problem the NFL brings up is some of these pirate streams are indistinguishable from the real thing. And taking a page from the music industry, they say the global sports industry is losing up to $28 billion in potential annual revenue.
Right.
They just made
I'm guessing potential and up to were the key words in this.
I have also lost up to $28 billion.
Yeah, exactly.
Potentially, yes. Really hard on me, let me tell you.
Those T-shirt, do not.
So I could have sold a gazillion of them. Oh.
Where is your store? Let's give you a plug.
It's over at Cotton Bureau. If you go to my site, dmoren.com/shirts, it'll take you to all my shirts.
Do you, we sell stuff and we don't make enough money to make it worthwhile. We just do it as a spiff for our listeners so they can, if they want to do this. I don't want to get into your finances, but is it worthwhile? I
mean, modestly at times it's fun to do. I enjoy it. Like you can see up there actually that Micah Sargent and I have our Clockwise shirt over to.
I see that. Yes,
we put up. Yeah, so it's fun to do. We just wanted something for the fans, and
it's for the fans. That's really that's why we do.
It's not a moneymaker. No.
Although I'm really liking this little Commonwealth insignia.
Oh yeah, I wear that on my lapel when I go to cons. So.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm tempted.
Yeah,
it's only $13.
I know, it's a steal.
It's a steal.
You can probably find it on a piracy site somewhere, though. You can probably get it for cheaper.
But that would actually be a steal.
Then literally a steal. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean we used to do sort of merch on the register under the Cash and Carrion name, but I mean it's very small beer in most cases. There are very few people who can make a living out of this kind of thing, but it's got to be really, really annoying, Dan, where people rip your stuff off like that.
Yeah, especially because it is such a I am an independent business person, right? I'm just me, and I'm just selling these things, out of the back of my van or whatever. But it's a bummer when it's like, why are you stealing my stuff? Like, go after the big guys, right? Steal all the MLB streams, like Nicholas was saying. Don't go after me. I'm not making any money.
Well, speaking of big guys, Barbie is supposed to come out on iTunes and all the services on Tuesday.
What?
And it's already, the HD rip, the 1080p is already floating. I'm looking at the files right now. It was posted yesterday, so it's already available in 1080p.
Well, of course,
I covered piracy a lot at TechCrunch. God, like 10 plus years ago. This is not going away. If it hasn't by now,
Where do they get? Is this a somebody with a video camera in the theater shot this, or this is the actual release version that somebody snuck out of there?
No, the file I'm looking at right now. This is taken off. It looks like a CDN, one of the CDNs, and it's the file that you will watch from iTunes starting Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Nicholas is totally right. Like if they could have stopped it, they would. I used to think about this as sort of I used to call it the hydratic equation, right? It's like you cut off one piracy source, 2 more show up. Like it just keeps going. There's no way. I mean, we had this fight, like you said, with the music industry over a decade ago about DRM. And I think, Apple at that point and some of the other ones had the right idea, which is you got to compete with it, right? You got to make it easily affordable and less punishing to use. You're not going to eradicate piracy that way, but you got to trust that like lots of people will still want to do the right thing and actually pay money for their goods.
Yeah, I mean, it's that cost. I think most people are fundamentally honest. But also, if you said to someone, would you rather pay, I don't know, $7 or $8 a month and get access to all this content, or would you rather go on, God, this is dating me, LimeWire or whatever the latest, or Discord or whatever. I know that's a blast from the past.
Let's ask Nicholas, where do you get Barbie?
Allegedly.
One of those terrible piracy sites.
As your lawyer,
Yeah. Well, there are still sites and there are still private BitTorrent communities and things like that.
There's no Pirate Bay. Pirate Bay's gone, right?
Like you have to like.
Let me look.
I think it still exists, but I don't know that it's the force that it was. I was going to bring up, a big kind of like Valve with Steam. PC piracy 15 years ago was rampant. And Valve came along and created an easy-to-use system where it's like, okay, I don't want to sit through and potentially download some malware from some crazy site just so I could play Call of Duty or whatever. I will just use Steam. It's awesome. It's great. It downloads quickly. I don't have to worry about it. So the solution to this is like to make this less accessible and reasonably priced, so that you don't have to, so that you're not tempted to like sit through and sift through like a million pop-ups and like all this stuff just to like watch a baseball or an NFL game or whatever.
Yeah,
these sites exist. I believe it seems Yeah. It feels smaller than it was. It feels like, when the Pirate Bay, again, like 15 years ago, like everyone was like, it felt like it was much more mainstream. Today, it feels like much more focused and much smaller communities. Like to get into some of these like private BitTorrent sites, you have to pass tests. You have to be interviewed. So you have to like prove that you know how to seed and how to like play nice on the site. They're not just going to let any kind of like Tom, Dick, and Harry. So it's become way more. So that like the average person is not going to do that. The average person is not going to take an interview to join a piracy site. Like that's not happening.
Yeah.
So these are kind of the dedicated people who really, for whatever reason, really want. And they're arguable. They're like, okay, these files are not accessible anymore. We have like this version of this album is no longer available on Spotify, but we have it here on the site. So there are like arguments for it. But yeah, it still exists. But my sense is that it's a little bit smaller than it was.
Oh, I think it's a lot smaller. I think as soon as people could get it on streaming sites legitimately for $5 or whatever, people just said, okay, fine. It's there might be a handful of people. And honestly, I don't think those people, if they wouldn't pay the $5 rental fee, are not paying, there wouldn't be, they're not losing revenue to these people. Exactly. These are collectors.
Right. Not lost sales.
Yeah, they're not lost sales.
Yes.
I mean, almost universally.
It used to be accessibility for me. That was sort of the last holdout for me, was like
make it easy.
Stuff that I couldn't get either, right? Like I mean, it used to be British television shows because I couldn't get them, but now you can get them pretty easily in the US, like legitimately. So that was kind of the last.
Exactly the same. I mean, because I'm a big Formula One nut, I will. I think the statute of limitations has run out, but yes, I streamed stuff illegally, so that I could watch the races. But as soon as it became available legally, I now pay cheerfully for it.
Me
I think
too.
most people,
Yeah. I actually love F1 TV. I don't know. I guess because F1 didn't become a big thing in the States till recently, you can watch it all on streaming. They have multiple camera views. They have multiple commentaries. You can have the Sky commentator, Crofty, or you can have the F1 TV commentators. I love that. I think this is what streaming should really be. And if you're an enthusiast, by the way, great race in Monza, wasn't it? That was something.
Oh, absolute.
No spoilers.
Absolute great. Yeah, no spoilers, but I think we all know who won. But at the same time, the racing in the midfield was amazing. Yeah. And 5 people led the race, that race.
Yeah, that was fun.
Sorry, bit of a geek.
Yeah, we like F1.
I used to use a back in I got into my dad was a huge Formula One fan my whole life growing up. I didn't get into it until like 2008, 2009. But back then, what I would do to watch the races was I would use a VPN to log into BBC iPlayer, I think it was called, and they had live streams free and clear as long as you had a UK IP address. So that's how I watched it for many, many years.
Yeah.
Now you see, you're actually an evil, filthy pirate who was ripping off the beloved British Broadcasting Company. But I mean, if it's not there and available,
I'm sorry.
Then fine. Yeah.
They try very hard to keep iPlayer from allowing that. They will look for VPN IP addresses and stuff because their thesis is, well, yeah, the British public has paid this license fee, so you shouldn't be able to watch this for free. But honestly, what have they lost? It's not like you could pay for it any other way.
I have been actually advocating with friends who are at the BBC right now, basically ever since I moved over to the US, and just say, look, do an international TV license the same way that you have a TV license in the UK. People, I can think of millions of expats who would probably
yes. Well, they have
cheerfully happy to pay
BritBox.
that.
That's kind of what BritBox is.
Yeah,
I pay for
subscribe to that.
BritBox.
Yeah, me too.
That's not iPlayer. It's not, I would like to see every episode of QI and stuff, and you can't. But
No, I know they do have the complete League of Gentlemen though. So
now we're talking. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, if you make it available,
I have one funny.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I have one funny Formula One anecdote. In 2011, I interviewed who was Sebastian Vettel.
Oh, Vettel.
And I was at News Corp at the time, and Vettel, and this was in New York, and he was like, I love coming to New York because nobody knows who I am. So I could just I can go to the restaurant, I could walk around, and nobody bothers with that. Could that happen today?
No,
Do you think Verstappen could walk around Manhattan today and no one would recognize him?
No,
I don't think so.
Yeah. But that's Johnny Carson used to go vacation in France because nobody knew who the hell Johnny Carson was because they didn't have the Tonight Show in Europe. But now we live in a global world, and everybody knows who Max Verstappen is. Absolutely. So I think F1 TV is a good example of it's $80 for what is that season? It's a long season.
It's a
24
race
24
season.
races. Yeah.
But then they also include sort of archives of all the
a lot of camera angles.
Work.
Yeah.
It's always fun,
fair.
When someone crashes out, just reversing the stream and then just listening in on the cockpit radio to hear.
Oh, I love seeing those cameras. I love seeing the cockpit cameras. Those are amazing. And if I think about it, the $80 a year I pay for F1 TV is only 1/10,000th of what I'm paying for a single ticket to see F1 in Las Vegas in November.
Yes, you're going up to Vegas, yeah. Well, I was there for DEF CON and Black Hat, as you know, and they're resurfacing the strip at the moment.
Oh, yeah. They've already started building the
heat
grandstands and the Bellagio fountains.
Well, they're also building grandstands in front of hotels, which have refused to pay the $1 million charge to have their windows unobscured.
They're blocking restaurants and others that have a view of the strip because, well, you got to pay.
Money to be made. Yeah.
Hey, it's Vegas. If you have a restaurant in Vegas, I think you know this already. We're going to do another break. We have a great panel. It's great to have you, Dan Moren. A big fan. Love the books. Can't wait to see the new one.
Thank you.
And, of course, sixcolors.com. He's also on the Incomparables Mastodon server, Zeppelin.flights as D. Is it D. Moren or Dan Moren?
It is actually D. Moren there.
It's D. Moren. We got to fix that. D. Moren.
You can find me.
Zeppelin.flight. Yeah, I just searched for you and found you. It was easy. We also have Iain Thomson of theregister.com. They've got a nice URL now all of a sudden. And you're on the Twitter, you're on the Mastodon, you're everywhere.
Blue Sky, Twitter, and Mastodon. Just any variant of Iain Thomson will probably get through to me.
Yeah. Nice. And of course, from Consumer Reports, Nicholas Deleon. He's their senior electronics reporter. You've worked everywhere. I didn't realize you worked for Newsday and everybody.
News Corp,
Fox. You worked for Fox. You worked for
Murdoch
Rupert.
Murdoch walked by my desk once. I did. He walked by my desk once, and I felt very intimidated.
But how did he smell?
Yeah.
Did he smell?
I worked at a bunch of places.
Did he smell fabulous?
Wonderful. He smelled wonderful.
He smelled like money.
I don't remember. He kind of shuffled. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Vaguely of Jerry Hall.
It was intimidating for him. Just.
Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. I love ZipRecruiter because we use it, and that's where we get some of our best people. That's where we hired Viva. ZipRecruiter knows new hires are expensive, $4,700 on average. What? So what's the most effective way to find the best people for your opening at your company? ZipRecruiter. That's what we use. See for yourself right now. You could try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT and experience the value ZipRecruiter brings to hire. Not for $4,700, for free right now. ZipRecruiter gives you the power to zero in on top talent. I love this feature. If you've got your eye on an excellent candidate, ZipRecruiter will let you invite them. When somebody's invited to apply for your job, they hop to it. They really do. Who wouldn't? It's a thrill to be asked. You can easily send candidates you're really interested in a personal invite to apply that helps your job stand out among the competition. And actually these days, you often are competing for the best people. There's lots of jobs open and a few number of people applying. So you want to stand out. Now, I love it that ZipRecruiter lets you try before you commit. There's no cost to trying ZipRecruiter. Not $4,700, Zippo. You can post jobs for free, so you can see for yourself how effective ZipRecruiter is at helping you hire. Once you post your job, ZipRecruiter's smart technology works fast to identify people whose skills and experience match your needs, and then they send you a list of available great matches for your job. You pick the top ones and invite them to apply. That's very, very magic. Plus, because you're posting your job on ZipRecruiter, it's going to more than 100 job boards. It's going to social networks. You're casting the widest possible net, so you're much more likely to reach that perfect person for your opening. It's easy. ZipRecruiter helps you get hiring right. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to the exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free before you commit. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT. We agree ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. Thank you, ZipRecruiter, for helping us so very, very much. Here's some good news. I'm looking forward to this. Are any of you old enough to remember watching OJ? First of all, the slow speed chase going through LA. Did you watch that, Iain? Were you old enough to remember that?
Yes, I remember that very well, and then I remembered the subsequent footage of him, sort of on the golf course wearing one glove, which seemed a rather unfortunate thing.
And I don't know about you, but we were glued to the trial day in, day out. That's why, by the way, that's how you can thank the OJ trial for the fame of the whatchamacallums.
The Kardashians.
The Kardashians.
No.
Because Dad was an attorney. Dad was one of OJ's attorneys, right? And he made his name. People knew Kardashian. And then his kids and his ex-wife, or maybe I don't know, he's gone, but his wife became very famous for absolutely nothing because people knew the name. Anyway, the good news is there will be stars and celebrities made because the judge has ruled that the Georgia election interference trial for Donald J. Trump will be live streamed on YouTube. It's the modern age. YouTube. I imagine the networks will pick it up as well, but the The court will allow press pool photography and laptops during the proceedings because it's a state proceeding, not a federal proceeding. Generally, federal courts are not open to cameras. State courts almost always are. And this is a first as far as I know. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee announced Thursday that the entire proceedings will be streamed on YouTube. This is going to be good for YouTube's ratings, I would bet, if it's anything like the OJ trial.
Yep, certainly. Although I think a lot of viewers are going to be rather disappointed at first because, I mean, I'm sure we've all been to law courts as part of
It's not the most exciting thing in the world.
No,
it's not like watching a legal drama. No.
Yeah,
it's not like
it's
Law and Order or L.A. Law or CSI.
Man, they're really capitalizing on the success of Suits over on Netflix.
Yeah.
We gotta get this trial.
You know what's funny?
Streaming now.
I had never watched Suits. And because of everybody saying this is the show of the summer, it's from 2011 through 2019. I watched it. It was okay.
I watched it when it aired. I liked it, but it's not
great.
It's not the reflective of the position it has earned in the ratings.
Yeah.
That is a weird aberration.
Well, get ready because with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, I suspect a lot of old shows are suddenly going to be discovered and hit the top of the charts. But I don't know. I think it's March. This starts in March. So come March, we will have something to watch on YouTube. It should be an interesting trial, but you're right. It's going to be long and boring and procedural most of the time.
The party of the first part and the party of the second part, which to put I don't know. There will be, the networks will love this because basically they can just take this copy and run it on their site.
Right.
But they can cherry pick the best bit. And I think all those Trump supporters or Trump haters who are going to tune in and do marathon watching, they're just going to get very bored very quickly.
Well, social media is also going to have a field day, right? I mean, this is going to be, like you just said, same thing with the networks. They're going to cherry pick all over the place. This proves my point. This proves my point. And, it's just going to be everybody really yelling about the things that they already believe and how whatever this clip supports the things they already believe, but it's going to be on a massive scale. I mean, honestly, in some ways, I'm glad that Twitter has kind of disintegrated because you would not be able to spend time on it in this era. It's going to be madness.
Do you believe in UFOs? Sorry, I didn't mean to sing. The Department of Defense has launched an all-domain anomaly resolution office AARO website. It's aaro.mil. What are all domain anomalies? UFOs, or as they call them now, UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Phenomena. I guess because I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this.
Well, you saw the congressional hearings on this.
I guess because of that. I guess it must be that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's related to that, and just I watched a bit of that, and it was totally bonkers. He was just
the guy's nuts.
We found non-human remains in this spacecraft, and someone pointed out that a twig is a non-human remain.
It's just nuts.
Do you think this is just their attempt to be like, really stop asking us? Asking us about aliens. We're done.
Here's the statement, the director's message. Welcome to the website for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which already sounds like a Monty Python skit right from the start. Our team of experts is leading the U.S. government's efforts to address unidentified anomalous phenomenon using a rigorous scientific framework and a data-driven approach. I think he copied and pasted that one. Since its establishment in July 2022, AARO has taken important steps to improve data collection, standardize reporting requirements, and bore you to tears.
Well, maybe you're on something, Leo. I think maybe that's the plan here. I think the plan is to make it super boring, right? Like they're unsexying it. Like everybody wants to talk about UFOs and aliens, but unidentified anomalous phenomena means nothing. Right. Or everything. It doesn't matter. So maybe they're just trying to make it as boring as possible in the hopes that people will stop talking about aliens.
Here's the front page graphic for this. The UAP reporting trends.
Ooh, someone learned to
There's excitement.
Sexy. There's graphs. There's maps. There's heat maps. Let me open up the whole thing.
I mean, the thing is, we've all seen unidentified flying objects. It's just that we couldn't identify them ourselves, and someone else had to go, no, actually, that's a plane.
Right.
Is that a bird?
So
I can't tell. It could be a bird.
From 1996 to 2023, typically reported UAP characteristics: morphology, round, size, 1 to 4 meters, color, white, silver, translucent. Altitude, well, look at this graph. This is reported UAP altitudes. They tend to hover around 20,000 feet, but they tend to be between 10 and 30,000 feet. You don't get them up at the higher elevations. Velocity.
Coincidentally, the same kind of altitude you see passenger jets flying at.
Yeah.
Just a point.
Yeah, interesting. Velocity stationary to Mach 2. You never saw a Mach 2 passenger jet. No thermal exhaust detected.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes these things are like say weather balloons or just like weird optical illusions.
You sound
or
like a doubter. You sound like doubting Dan.
I am a doubter. Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with it.
Look at this. 47% are round spherical orbs.
Yeah.
1% look like a Tic Tac.
1% of them are Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, NASA's gone through this already with the. Do you remember in 2011? They had to put up a website about 2012 pointing out that no, there isn't a brown dwarf star coming to rip the Earth apart. This is entirely a Mayan calendar thing. And anyway, they just reset the calendar. It wasn't the end of it. And it didn't stop the nut jobs and one terrifically bad film. But I mean, it's, there's no getting round stupidity sometimes. And
the heat map is kind of interesting. Here's a heat map of where most of the sightings occur. A lot of them in Southern California and the U.S. Southeast. The Middle East, for some reason.
The U.S. Southeast, you say, where they launch a lot of spaceships. Interesting.
And then China, around Beijing. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, who knows what these are? Who cares? Are they aliens? Nobody says they're aliens except the people who say they're aliens. They're just unidentified anomalous phenomena.
There's also just the logic aspect. I mean, if you're an alien nation, if you're an alien species, you've traveled light years to get here. And do you go to UN Plaza, to the UN? Do you go to the White House to introduce yourself? No, apparently you go to Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas and find a farmer and just anally probe him and then leave again. Logically, it makes no sense.
Or you just buzz a lot of Navy planes or something. Just be like, hey, guys.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah. See?
What was the name of the person from the Hitchhiker's? I'm trying to remember the name of the Zaphod Beeblebrox in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think he said he hitched a lift to Earth with, I think he called them tweeters or twitchers. It was people who put on costumes and parade up and down in front of humans just for a giggle.
This is from the FAQ, what are the leading explanations to account for UAP reports? No single explanation addresses the majority of UAP reports. We're collecting as much data as possible, following the data where it leads, and sharing our findings whenever possible. We will not rush to conclusions in our analysis. In many cases, observed phenomenon are classified as unidentified simply because sensors were not able to collect enough information to make a positive attribution. Could be airborne clutter, commercial or scientific balloons. I don't buy this for a moment. It's aliens, damn it. Well,
you remember the face on Mars that was, a mountain with a face on it, and then we got high-res images, and it was like, nope. Doesn't look anything like a face unless it's been heavily beaten with meteorites for several million years.
I once saw a cloud that looked like a duck. What do you want from me?
The ducks are out there. Listen to them.
Gannett has admitted that they were using AI to write, you writers will be happy to learn this, to write articles, but are stopping because, in the words of Timothy Geithner, writing at Techdirt, they were hilariously terrible. Gannett is publishes USA Today, among other things, many other newspapers. Yeah, admits its attempt to injecting AI written articles for local sports news coverage was a failure. Here's an example from the Columbus Dispatch. Westerville North escapes Westerville Central in thin win in Ohio high school football action by Lead AI. That's who wrote this. The Westerville North Warriors defeated the Westerville Central Warhawks I just think somebody's happy not to have had to write this, to be honest with you. 21-12 in an Ohio high school football game on Friday. Westerville North edged Westerville Central 21-12 in a close encounter of the athletic kind. At Westerville North High on August 18th. Did we mention this was Ohio football action? Westerville North opened with a 7-0 advantage over Westerville Central through the first quarter. The Warhawks trimmed the margin to make it 7-6 at half. Westerville North jumped to a 21-6 lead heading into the final quarter. The Warriors chalked up this decision in spite of the Warhawks' spirited fourth quarter performance. Check out our complete boys football roundup to stay up to date on all the action. Apparently, they just...
I've had days when my writing feels like that.
Yeah.
Even on those days, I'm writing better copy than
Gagner writes, first, it sounds as if it was written by a robot that was drunk or possibly high or perhaps had played football itself and taken one too many hits to its primary server. It's devoid of any specifics such as named players, description of any plays, particularly important scoring plays. Also, scoring 6 points in the final quarter of a football game and losing is not a spirited fourth quarter performance and close encounter of the athletic kind. What the hell? AI, you gotta
these
love
things.
it.
But I mean, they're basically just. I forget who it was, but described it as scholastic parrot territory.
Yeah,
they're good at summarizing. They can't come up with a novel story to save their lives. But the fact of the matter is that they are going to be used. And I wasn't surprised with this case because, as you say, they publish USA Today, which could possibly be done by an AI fairly simply. But the key thing publishers aren't. I mean, the idea they came in. They love the minute ChatGPT came out. A lot of publishers were like, we want that. We can get rid of these pesky journalists. We can just get it to write articles and they can just put copy out. We can sell advertising against it. And then they discovered very quickly that if you don't edit these things properly, because there's so much false information in there, then you make a rod for your own back. So yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be a while before we see purely AI generated news, but they certainly need some editors there.
I am fascinated by the rise of this because it comes at the same time as we've talked, people talk about things like it's increasingly hard to find things on Google and, constant SEO and stuff like that. And it's fascinating to me to have AI used to write stuff that appeals to SEO because it's literally having robots to write things to appeal to other robots, basically. It's like you can just take people out of the equation entirely. We don't even need to be here. We could just silo them off into their own little world and go about our business.
One thing I keep seeing is that it seems to be the case that you will never be able to eliminate hallucinations from AI, that is just part of large language models is they make stuff up because they're not programmed to check for a fact.
Yeah, they don't know how to do that.
They don't know what it means. How can they check to see if it's true?
You got to say, I mean, we're just like, okay, right. So we're getting robot journalists that can't tell truth from fiction. Can anyone tell me why this is a bad idea?
Possibly go wrong.
We're back to the media literacy studies programs.
I bet, Nicholas, though, in your early days, working for Rupert, you must have written a few, boring city council stories.
A few.
Yeah.
There were plenty of apps that I was like, oh, great, another Farmville clone or whatever I have to write about. Yeah, for sure. The one thing is in terms of hallucinations, I kind of built like a little home theater a couple months ago. And so I tried to use like all AI tools to like help me research. And it was like just bad. Like I was like, give me the stats on this receiver from Yamaha or whatever. And it was just giving me wrong information. Like, oh, it has X number of HDMI ports. And I'm looking at a picture of it on Yamaha's website. And it's like, well, it actually has like 8 instead of the 4 that you told me. Right. And so I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of like it's like not even useless. It's worse than it's like it's actively wrong. It's not even like, well, we think it might be this or like you should double. It's just giving me wrong information. So I don't know if this technology was improved. Yes, confidently, which is just like who is this helping? It certainly wasn't me doing the research to build out this home theater. But yeah, I don't know. I was very bullish on this AI stuff earlier in the year. Let's say January, February. I was like, oh wow, this is like really powerful. This is really cool. This will change as it's developed. I'm less and less maybe not impressed, but like it's just the hallucinations, just the AI hucksterism. I don't know. I guess it's still being developed, but I'm less like, wow, this is incredible. This will change everything. Now I'm like, is this just going to be kind of like crypto a little bit, where it seemed cool and like world changing, and then as the weeks and months go by, you're like, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I feel like we're at that never mind stage of the hype cycle.
Yeah,
for sure.
Speaking of hype cycles, NFTs. That's all you have to say. And people burst out laughing. If you look at the numbers, this is from Bloomberg. Once hyped as the next big thing, now face worst moment. When you look at the numbers, it is.
Who could have seen this coming?
I could no idea. No idea. Monthly trading of volume for NFTs plummeted between January of last year and July of this year, 81%. NFT sales figures have dropped 61% over the same period. The floor prices for blue chip NFTs, which is an oxymoron right there, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks, at more than 2-year lows. What does that mean? It means that anybody who bought one of these within the last 2 years is underwater, right? Yeah. They thought, oh, I'm going to buy Bored Ape number 52 and I'll be rich, that tells you. And it's you can't sell it for the same price you paid for it.
It really is. We're heading into digital Beanie Baby territory at this point.
Yes, exactly. Lorenzo Melendez, president at NFT project Pudgy Penguins. Okay, clearly Pudgy Penguins came after CryptoPunks and Bored Ape. They were kind of trying to jump on this bandwagon. Let's see, we need a cartoon critter that's cute. Pudgy Penguins. When you look at the charts, says Melendez, everything is down. Oh, yeah, cartoonish, cutesy versions of the flightless birds. You're seeing a lot of capitulation. We don't know what to do or where to go. Not only are the investors suffering, but the marketplaces. Recur, which is backed by billionaire Steve Cohen, is known for its Hello Kitty NFT partnership, said it's winding down due to unforeseen challenges and shifts in the business landscape. Mark Cuban-backed NFT social media platform Nifty, which partnered with Warner Brothers on Looney Tunes themed NFTs, said it's closing shop, saying investment opportunities didn't pan out. Blur has seen its sales volume measured in Ether drop 96% in 3 months. OpenSea decided to make royalties paid on secondary sales of the work optional rather than mandatory. It's kind of over. I'm sorry.
It really is.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's kind of like Dogecoin or something like that. You know, we're really into the final stages of it now, and then everyone realizes they've lost an awful lot of money. Apart from the people who got in there at the start and hyped their own NFTs, and they made out like bandits, quite literally.
Yeah, some collectors became millionaires overnight. One hopes they got out before the crash.
That's always the tricky part, isn't it?
Does one hope?
No, actually, one hopes.
I have no desire for those people to. I don't feel bad for them at all. I don't feel good for them. I just wish they would.
Yeah, because if they got out, that means somebody else bought it and they're stuck with it, right? So, Yuga Labs, which developed Bored Apes and acquired CryptoPunks, so it owned the two biggest ones, quote, faces a significant challenge because it may miss out on substantial revenue each month due to the new OpenSea royalties policy. Yuga recently announced it's winding down support for OpenSea. So that's, they're just rats deserting a sinking ship is what's going on.
I did remind the wording there did remind me a bit of WeWork's latest financial statement, where they were saying, there may be issues with being an ongoing concern, and you're kind of like, that doesn't sound good at all.
Good. and did I think people bought the stock anyway?
Yeah, they did.
The stock went up when they said we're going to, we think we're going out of business.
I think, honestly, it had reached such a low level that people were thinking, I'll just take a quick punt and we'll see what happens.
Maybe
but
they turn it around.
I've been working in WeWork offices for the last 5 years on and off. And you could see instantly that they were onto a loser. But, more money than sense.
Yeah. Okay. I guess. I don't know. Again, more Schadenfreude, right? What can I say? Let's take a little break, wrap things up with our great panel in just a moment. Our show today brought to you by Lookout. Business has changed forever. It's obvious. Boundaries to where we work, even how we work, have disappeared. Your data now as a company is always on the move, on a device, in the cloud, across networks, in a local coffee shop. And your workforce is loving it, of course. But it's a challenge for IT security. That's why you need Lookout. Lookout helps you control your data and free your workforce. With Lookout, you gain complete visibility into all your data, no matter where it is, so you can minimize risk from external and internal threats. You can ensure compliance. By seamlessly securing hybrid work, your organization does not have to sacrifice productivity and the happiness of your employees for security. You can have both. Lookout makes IT security a lot simpler, too. Instead of working with a bunch of different multi-point solutions or a bunch of open tabs, legacy tools, it's just that complexity means there's going to be gaps. It means stuff's going to slip through the cracks. Lookout solves that. With a single unified platform, Lookout reduces IT complexity, giving you more time to focus on whatever else is coming your way. IT loves it. Your people love it. You'll love it because you're secure. Good data protection isn't a cage. It should be a springboard, letting you and your organization bound toward a future of your making. Lookout is the future of data protection. Visit lookout.com today to learn how to safeguard data, secure hybrid work, reduce IT complexity. Lookout.com. I think you're going to love it. Lookout.com. We thank them so much for their support of the show. We had a great week this week on Twit. We've got a little mini movie to fill you in on what you missed.
Leg support has come to the Quest Horizon Home app. This is a public test channel beta version. I'm going to have to hire a developer, and I'm going to create the very first virtual rockets simulation. So that we can all get into a line and do the kick dance with other with other players.
I'm down. I
can't believe I even came up with that. He's just shaking his head because he didn't come up with the idea first.
That's what it is.
Previously on Twit. This week in Google.
Chuck Schumer says he's going to host an AI forum with Musk and Zuckerberg. I wonder if there'll be a cage match at the end.
Oh, gosh.
He shouldn't start with these boys. He should start with backgrounders, with the academics, and truly teach them. So when the big boys come in, they know what to ask.
Because the big boys
are
the salespeople for this crap.
Yeah.
This week in Enterprise Tech.
We're joined by Keithan Karkanis. He's EVP and GM of Salesforce Sales Cloud.
You want to think about how AI can transform the business. For example, in sales, how can AI help a sales leader increase sales productivity by 25%? Now that's a business metric that your board and your CEO can get behind.
This week in space.
This is an older prototype of a rear entry suit. The backpack swings open like a refrigerator door.
What?
And you would then climb in, your legs first, and then you insert your arms through these holes.
Twit.
If I had a spacesuit, I'd be wearing the spacesuit right now. I'd be wearing it at dinner. I wouldn't just use it for scientific tests itself.
If you miss a minute, you miss a lot. I want you to make sure you see everything that's coming up. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, that's the best way to keep track of what's coming up on Twit. It's free, easy to subscribe, twit.tv/newsletter. Of course, I would love to encourage you to join Club Twit. $7 a month gets you a whole lot of benefits. Ad-free versions of all the shows. Ad feed meets tracker free. You get access to the fabulous Club Twit Discord, where great conversations happen all the time, not just during our shows. And you get special shows that we don't put out anywhere else, including, I might add, Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson, Micah Sargent's Hands on Macintosh, Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott. All this for $7 a month. It's a really good deal. And most importantly, and you could feel this in your heart, it helps us keep the lights on, keep the staff employed, and keep making programs for you. If you like what we do, support us. twit.tv/club. Twit. We appreciate your support. And thanks to all the Club Twit members, too. They make a lot possible. Speaking of dumb AI, ever since the public utility... Now, you live in San Francisco, so you can confirm or deny, Iain. Ever since the California Public Utilities Commission gave a green light to Cruise, GM's Cruise, and Google's Waymo self-driving vehicles, there have been they said you could operate all day and all night. You can have as many as you want, no restrictions. Go have at it. In other words, have at San Francisco. There have been story after story about problems caused in San Francisco. This latest, down south of Market, a pedestrian was hit, and driverless taxis blocked the ambulance from leaving the scene. It was in a 4-lane one-way street in Soma, probably Harrison or I don't know which one, but they had 2 cruise vehicles in 2 of the lanes, and they had emergency vehicles in the other 2 lanes. The cruise vehicles wouldn't move out of the way for the ambulance. Somebody had to jump in the police car, move it out of the way so the ambulance could get the guy to the hospital. He died. And the police are blaming, frankly, the cruise vehicles. Cruise says, it wasn't our fault. We didn't do it.
Yeah, Cruise always says that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, in one way, they had really unfortunate timing because just as the San Francisco city authorities announced a massive expansion of the cruise fleet, there was a huge music festival that weekend.
Oh, outside lands, yeah.
Yeah. And so because everyone was using their phone, then the mobile signal started to stutter. And of course, these cars depend on that, and they were just stopping. We've had similar cases where an ambulance was blocked a couple of months ago. My favorite one, which, considering San Francisco is the epicenter of sort of automated cars, they found that Cruise and some other models couldn't handle thick fog. They thought it was something solid.
Oh, thank God there's no fog in San Francisco.
I know. It's just lovely and sunny every day. This has been a problem. I mean, I think there's a relatively easy fix in that if you can have ambulances, police cars, that sort of thing, they have certain clear body shapes and body forms. They have certain lights that they use and certain sirens they use. It shouldn't be that hard to actually build that into the operating software for these autonomous vehicles. But it's just astounding that they let them out in such a large trial.
I don't know if it's a coincidence because Tesla's seem to have trouble with emergency vehicles as well. They seem to run into fire trucks and other emergency vehicles at a high rate. There's something about emergency vehicles that these cars are not recognizing. San Francisco Fire Department says that this case was one of more than 70 of autonomous vehicles interfering with emergency responders. The California Public Utilities Commission may have approved it, but San Francisco officials have protested the expansion of these services.
Yeah, I mean,
have you seen it yourself? Have you witnessed it?
Oh, what? An actual vehicle being
is it an issue?
Vehicle being blocked.
It's weird. I have to say, it's weird driving in the city and looking over, and there's nobody at the wheel of the car next to you.
Well, one of them nearly sideswiped my wife a couple of weeks ago because it was pulling out from the pavement and obviously thought it could make it, and she sped up to go around someone else and, came very close. I mean, yeah, I find it a little unnerving to see them as well. At the same time, this is coming one way or another. It's whether or not it takes 1 year or 2 years or 5 years before they can get this sorted out. But as I say, it does seem there should be a fix there. But if I could say that for certain, I would be an autonomous car designer earning about 5 times what I'm earning at the moment.
I think that the issue really is that they are imperfect now, and Tesla and GM and Google are willing to put out beta products to get their training in the real world, knowing that this is what they need to get better. But meanwhile, it's a big beta test on the streets of the city.
Yeah, I mean, and San Francisco is not alone in this. I mean, in Arizona, for example, which will be of interest to another panelist, these things are huge in certain specific cities. They can't handle. This is very useful from Arizona's perspective because these cars generally can't handle snow, ice, and driving rain, and those are all thin on the ground in Arizona, but depending where you are, of course. But you're right. I mean, they are beta testing this on human beings using chunks of metal going at 30 miles an hour and with no driver. I think they've been pushing and rushing it a bit too much.
Yeah. This was part of the problem with the Outside Lands Festival because they do have remote drivers monitoring these cars. They're not driving them, but they're they're probably monitoring a number of cars. Once they lost connectivity, those cars were on their own, and boy, that immediately problems began. I don't know. Cruise after a couple of crashes agreed with the Department of Motor Vehicles to cut their fleet in half in San Francisco until the investigation completed. But the problems keep happening. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm glad they're not in my town, and they're not in Tucson. I don't think, right?
No, they're only up in Phoenix, is my understanding, and I'm like 2 hours away from me. So one thing I will say is I was in New York about 2 months ago, back at the CR offices, and I spoke to some kid, not at CR, but he was like really hyped about self-driving. He has some sort of disability which prevents him from driving.
Well, there you go.
So he was,
that's a good.
So he was like, unless it's within reach of the subway, the New York City subway, I can't get there. So he was like, I hope this technology works out because people like me. This would be really awesome for us. Obviously you don't want like crash, but he was just kind of like bullish. Like I hope it works because this would be really good. And I think that's more or less where I land. I don't know how they like beta test this stuff without putting them in the field and like actually getting them in cities. I mean, you have to like try to fly a couple rockets before you get to the moon type of thing. So I don't know where that line is, but I just know that at least that one human being was like, man, oh man, I hope it works because this would be really awesome.
I think that's fair. And we do know that humans are terrible drivers. And I'm sure in the time since this story happened, there's at least one human who blocked an ambulance in San Francisco. I mean, this is not so.
I used to have this argument all the time with my best friend from college. He's an ER doctor, and his argument was always, look, I've seen people do the stupidest, terrible things, and I think there's no way a computer could be worse than that. And I spent some time as a programmer and developer, and I said, let me tell you about how computers work. It's not pretty.
Yeah, that's true. Those of us who know a little bit about technology perhaps are a little less bullish than others.
Yeah, and yes, you're right. You're perfectly right about humans. I had a doctor friend who referred to motorcyclists driving in the rain as organ donors.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just, plus, if it gets good, fine. I just think they took the humans away from the primary controls a little bit too early.
Maybe that's the real answer. Yes, let them drive, but have a safety driver who can take over. It doesn't always fix it. But
the argument I've had from a tech firm on this, who shall remain nameless because it was off the record, they said that's kind of like when, I don't know if you had the same in America, but in Britain, when motor cars were first introduced in the late 1890s and early noughties, it was a mandated law that you had to have someone with a red flag walking in front of the car to alert people that this contraption was going by. Obviously, it was a stupid idea. Well, it became a stupid idea very, very quickly. And I think, the idea of having a proper driver's car with no driver in it, that's going to become commonplace at some point in the next 1 to 5 years. But at the same time, I do kind of feel like they took the drivers out a wee bit early until they'd finished the fine tuning.
Yeah. If you subscribed 22 months ago to Google's Pixel Pass, saying, wow, $45 a month, I get a new phone, I get YouTube Premium, Google Play Pass, Google One Storage, a protection plan, and when the next Pixel comes out, I get that and continue to pay the $45 a month. Bad news. Google, after 22 months, a scant month before the release of the Pixel 8, has discontinued Pixel Pass. You will never be able to get what you thought you were going to get, which was a new phone. I mean, you're not losing anything either, but if you bought it thinking, well, this will be good because I'll always have the latest Pixel phone, you get to keep the phone at the end of the 2-year term. The bundled subscriptions will continue to be available at a discount. Plus, you'll get a $100 credit you could put toward a future Google hardware purchase. But it's the end of the Pixel Pass. One more killed by Google item. And probably, this is a guess by Ben Schoon at 9 to 5 Google. It's because Google knew that they were going to have to raise the price to make up for the difference. Everybody's raising their prices. YouTube Premium has gone up. Everything's more expensive. I think companies are no longer subsidizing cloud storage the way they used to, something like that.
And once you've got people locked in, I'm sorry, after you, Dan.
Oh, I was just saying, there's a lot more competition, but not in a good way. Like, it's consolidation of some of these things. There's so many services, so people are like having to pick and choose. There's the cash flow problems, not to mention throwing in the strikes. There's a lot of reasons that especially the streamers have been forced to raise a lot of their prices.
Yeah. Google did announce the Pixel 8 event and the Pixel Watch 2 event October 4th. And they will be doing it in New York City. And they apparently will. Are they not streaming it? I think they're not streaming it. It's Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft's event, September 21st. They're not streaming, but Google will probably stream their event. We'll cover the ones that are streamed anyway. We'll let you know. I know one thing we'll be doing, and that's a week from Tuesday. We'll be covering the Apple iPhone 15 event, and Apple will, of course, stream that live. Microsoft, after 28 years, is killing WordPad. Aww.
Yeah.
Aww. Did anybody use WordPad? Anybody?
I use Word. We didn't have Microsoft Word when I was growing up. That cost money, so I used WordPad all through high school. Yes.
Yeah, it was all you needed of Word, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah,
but we didn't have Word.
Microsoft's solution, they said Word is no longer being updated because nobody's working on it. Said it'll be removed in future versions of Windows. We recommend Microsoft Word.
Amazingly enough,
yeah,
which is not free, unlike WordPad.
They still have Notepad still work?
Notepad will still work, but that's text only. And the WordPad was nice because it read doc files. So you could open those Microsoft Office files.
It's just, I wish they'd be slightly more honest about it. It's not that, if you looked at the graph of people using it, I'm willing to see a slow decline now that we've got round to the really big one. The fact of the matter is, it's 28 years old. We don't want to support it anymore, so we're killing it. Get over it. Just a little honesty would be useful.
And might be worth remembering that there was a malware exploit that used WordPad earlier this year. Abusing a DLL hijacking flaw in the Windows 10 WordPad app. So, you combine the fact that nobody's maintaining it with the fact that it's now being a vector for malware. Yeah, maybe we should just kill it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, to be honest, Microsoft is better than most companies, at supporting older operating systems long before they're actually, they're due to be retired, although it's increasingly pushy about pushing new ones onto you. But I mean, it was a very old bit of code, and probably not many people using it. So they're just kind of like, meh.
I think it's really a good point, though, Nicholas, that people who cannot afford Word, there was something you could use as a word processor on your PC.
That is non-joke. We did not have Microsoft Word. I didn't know Word existed, frankly. On like, we use it at school. Some of the school computers had it, but I'm like, what is Word?
Right.
I use WordPad at home. Is that the same thing? I don't even really know. I'm not sure.
It looks just like Word.
I mean, it worked fine. I didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage using WordPad. I would assume most folks today, use something like Google Docs. It's free.
That's the real solution. Yeah.
We use Google Docs at Consumer Reports for all my articles are written in Google Docs.
Yeah, so we use it here.
It's good enough.
And as you know, we're looking at a Google spreadsheet for our rundown. It works fine.
The Mac equivalent back in the day to Simple Text was the one in classic Mac OS. So it was basically the WordPad, same idea.
Now it's got text edit
version.
But Apple's text edit can read it. It's like WordPad.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I
do
don't use it
RTF.
much because I don't have much call to it, but it does.
Right.
It's pretty capable for what it is.
Yeah.
And let's face it, 80% of Word users don't use more than 20% of any of the features on there. They just want basically write, spell check, cut and paste, insert image. That's it. You don't really need to be spending a huge amount of cash for that. In fact, there's free alternatives.
Mr. Iain Thomson, so great to have you on the show today. TheRegister.com, U.S. editor for The Register, Iain Thomson. Iain spelled I-A-I-N. And there's no P in Thomson. Good luck finding him. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'll be having... I've had words with my parents about that. And if I ever do have a child, then they're going to be called David or John or Simon or something.
Anything but Sue.
It's simple.
What are you... Is it now Blue Sky? You think that's going to be the future for you on...
I'm trying it out, but it's... The big disadvantage of the Twitter collapse, or the collapse in people using Twitter, has been there's no really easy way to keep the same social network and shift it to another platform. I mean, I've seen some things, but it's going to take time to build all that up again. And honestly, I've kind of enjoyed not being on social media as much. It feels like there's an awful lot more time to get stuff done that actually matters.
Yeah, I don't miss it posting. I got nothing to say in public. I talk all the time on the air, but I do like to have a place I can go to see what people are talking about. Like, what's the urgent story? Like, if you wanted to see flooding at Burning Man, where do you go? And I think it's still, I hate to say it, it's still Twitter. It's still X. I don't know if there's anywhere. I looked at Threads. Both Blue Sky and Threads are kind of not really
and Mastodon
happening.
as well, to be honest. It's quiet.
I like Mastodon because it's a community. It's not a social network. It's not like Twitter.
Also, you've also got to pick your community very carefully with Mastodon, which I think was the mistake I made first off. And
well, we've got Twit Social if you want to hang out with the Twits.
I've been posting in the Discord session during this very session.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I like the Twit group. And so we have a Discourse, which is a twit.community. That's a forum. We have a Mastodon, which is twit.social, just kind of like Jason does with zeppelin.flights. It's not hard to run your own Mastodon instance. And I rule with an iron fist. If somebody, posts something violating the rules, I ban them immediately. And it's become a very kind, nice place. But it isn't the place where you go to see, what's everybody talking about right now, unfortunately. And
that was always a big strength of Twitter. But such is life.
Even Twitter is hobbled somewhat by that. Nicholas Deleon, you're on all of them too, right?
I'm primarily on Twitter still. I have a Mastodon. I haven't gotten a Blue Sky invite. I suppose
I will send you one right now, post haste. I've got 5 burning a hole in my notification tray.
Yeah,
6.
I will say it is the disintegration of Twitter. I mean, like I said, most of my sports junk is still on there. But it does feel like its role as like the undisputed central nucleus of like what's going on, I feel like that has clearly diminished. But yeah, I don't know. I'm on there. I'm tweeting jokes and video game stuff, and I will say, if anyone has literally any question related to Consumer Reports, I am like Johnny on the spot. I will connect you with any writer, any editor. If you have a question about which Mazda to buy,
there you go.
I'm happy to do it. And my bosses are like, wow, look at Nicholas. He's really doing like almost a community, like unofficial community management, I guess you could say. But I'm happy to help in any way I can. And I'm dead serious about that. My email, it's on my Twitter bio. You could DM me. Please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. That's great. The Twitter is just your full name spelled out?
It's Nicholas A. Deleon. You guys should have it on the show notes.
We did not have the A the last time you were here, so we're going to now add that A. And I will DM you. I wonder if Twitter will let me DM you the Blue Sky invite, or will they block that?
That's a good question.
I shall try. It'll be an experiment. Thank you, Nicholas. Great to have you on the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, yeah.
Dan Moren, he's at sixcolor.com, and his new book, All Souls Lost, comes out October 17th, just in time for Halloween. And you can get it from his website, dmoren. Is it dmoren.com or danmoren.com?
Both of them work. I have them both.
Okay. You just say the short one because it's easier to say.
I used to. I only recently got the danmoren.com because it had been owned by another Dan Moren for a long time.
Damn those other Dan Morens.
I know. It was so frustrating. So I purchased that finally. And so it's redirecting right now. But the D Moren one, because that was my handle everywhere else.
It's easier. It's faster. It's shorter.
It's faster. It's quick.
All Souls Lost. And of course, we love reading Six Colors and your pieces there and Macworld and elsewhere. Anything coming up for you? I guess you'll be busy Tuesday, a week from Tuesday.
iPhone stuff is about to rule the roost for the next one. Plus iOS and macOS and all the updates.
That's right.
We'll have a lot of stuff at Six Colors.
It gets really busy in September and October for Apple journalists. Yeah. August, not so busy.
Quiet, very quiet. I've been on vacation a couple times in the last month, but now I got to buckle down and get back to work.
Get to work. Thank you, all three of you. Great to have you. Great to have you at home, you good listener or viewer. We do Twit on Sundays, 2 to 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. If you want to watch us do it live, you can. There's a live stream at live.twit.tv, audio and video. If you're watching live, then you can interact live with us. The chat room is irc.twit.tv. That's open to all. Club Twit members, of course, have their very own Discord group where they can chat. And we appreciate both of you, both groups. It's always nice to have you along for the ride. After the fact, get a copy of the show. And watch out, cat, watch out, kitty. There he goes, transported into the future. Little animated GIF on the Discord. You can get the show at the website, twit.tv. You can also find us on YouTube. There's a dedicated channel for most of our shows on YouTube. And, of course, the best way to get the show after the fact on your favorite podcast player. Look for This Week in Tech or Twit and subscribe. The longest-running tech podcast in the world, now going on 19 years. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.
This
Bye-bye.
is amazing.